Tonight, we gently embark on a journey through time, back to the ancient world of Rome, to explore a mystery that has puzzled historians for centuries, a tale whispered on the edges of the empire's vast domain. Find a comfortable position, perhaps lying on your back or your favorite side. Allow your eyelids to grow heavy. Take a slow, deep breath, and let your body relax completely into the surface beneath you, as we begin this quiet exploration of history's soft, unresolved echoes. Imagine, if you will, a serene scene unfolding across the sun-drenched countryside of ancient Italy. A landscape painted with the muted greens of rolling hills, the silver gray of olive groves stretching towards the horizon, and the deep, earthy browns of tilled fields, all bathed in the soft, golden light of a Roman morning. A picture of profound stability and the enduring order that the vast, powerful Roman Empire imposed upon the known world. A sense of peace carefully maintained by unseen forces. This was a world where life flowed with a certain predictable rhythm for those within the protective embrace of Roman rule, where merchants plied their wares in bustling, yet orderly markets. Farmers tended their land, knowing the roads were safe for transport, and citizens felt the distant, reassuring presence of Rome's authority, reaching even into the quietest corners of their daily existence. A testament to the empire's reach and its commitment to a structured, peaceful way of life within its borders. At the very heart of this remarkable stability, underpinning the peace and facilitating the expansion that defined the age, stood the Roman legions, not merely collections of soldiers, but highly efficient, formidable war machines, each a symbol of Rome's unwavering might and its pervasive presence felt across every province and along every contested frontier. Guardians of the Pax Romana. These legions were the backbone of the empire, meticulously trained, rigorously disciplined units composed of citizen soldiers and later auxiliaries, capable of incredible feats of engineering, logistics, and, when called upon, overwhelming military force, embodying the very essence of Roman resilience and strategic brilliance in their coordinated movements and unwavering loyalty to the eagles they carried into battle. Among these renowned formations was the Ninth Legion, known as Legio IX Hispana, a unit with a long and distinguished history, tracing its origins back centuries, having served under some of Rome's most famous commanders in campaigns that spanned continents, from the Iberian Peninsula to the cold, damp lands of Britannia, earning a reputation for both effectiveness and resilience in the face of diverse enemies and challenging environments. They were a veteran legion, hardened by countless marches, sieges, and battles, their ranks filled with experienced centurions and dedicated legionaries who had sworn their lives to the service of Rome and the protection of its interests. A unit that had proven its worth time and time again on distant battlefields, becoming an integral, trusted part of the vast Roman military apparatus that secured the empire's vast territories. For those living within the empire's boundaries, the legions represented a powerful, reliable force that ensured safety and stability, maintaining the long, straight roads, building the aqueducts and public works that improved daily life, and standing as an unyielding shield against the external threats that constantly pressed against the empire's extensive borders. Their disciplined presence a constant, comforting reminder of Rome's protective watch. Their very existence, their readiness to deploy wherever needed, allowed trade to flourish, cities to grow, and culture to spread, creating an environment of relative security and prosperity that was unprecedented in the ancient world, a tangible benefit of the legion's tireless efforts and the strategic vision of the emperors and generals who directed them across the vastness of the empire. It was this deep-seated trust in the legions, this reliance on their discipline and effectiveness, That made the events that would later unfold regarding the Ninth Legion so profoundly unsettling, introducing a note of disquiet into the otherwise harmonious symphony of Roman order and control, hinting at vulnerabilities that lay hidden beneath the surface of the empire's apparent invincibility. The legions were perceived as permanent fixtures, symbols of an eternal Rome, their names and numbers recorded meticulously in official documents and carved into stone monuments, their movements and deployments tracked by the central administration, creating a sense of accountability and transparency that reinforced their image as pillars of the state, essential components of its enduring power and reach. Their presence was a physical manifestation of Rome's will, a declaration to both its citizens and potential adversaries that the empire possessed the means and the resolve to defend its territories, enforce its laws, and project its power far beyond the city on the Tiber, establishing a network of control and influence that relied fundamentally on the disciplined strength of these military formations. Legio IX Hispana, having participated in significant campaigns such as the Roman conquest of Britain under Claudius and facing down the fierce Icenian rebellion led by Boudica, had cemented its reputation as a unit capable of operating effectively in challenging, unfamiliar terrains against determined and often unpredictable foes, demonstrating the adaptability and toughness required of legions stationed on the empire's wilder fringes. Their standard, the eagle, had been carried through numerous victories and endured moments of hardship, symbolizing not just the unit itself, but the collective spirit and shared history of the thousands of men who had served under its banner over the decades, each soldier contributing to the legion's legacy of service and sacrifice in the name of Rome and its expansionist ambitions. This history of reliable service and proven capability made the later questions surrounding the Ninth Legion's fate all the more perplexing, as it was precisely the kind of unit that the Empire depended upon, a cornerstone of its military might that seemed too substantial, too well documented, too integral to the fabric of the army to simply vanish without a trace, defying the very order and record-keeping that defined Roman administration. Their story was interwoven with the broader narrative of Roman expansion and consolidation, a thread in the grand tapestry of the empire's military history, representing the countless individual stories of soldiers and officers who dedicated their lives to extending and defending the boundaries of Roman civilization, often in harsh and distant lands far from their Italian homeland. Even in the remote provinces, the presence of a legion, like the Ninth, brought a sense of Roman identity, establishing communities around their fortresses, introducing Roman customs, language, and infrastructure, transforming the local landscape and integrating these distant territories more closely into the vast network of the empire, acting as agents of cultural as well as military influence. Their fortresses were not just military camps, but centers of Roman life, complete with baths, temples, administrative buildings, and living quarters that replicated aspects of life back in Italy, providing a familiar environment for the soldiers and attracting local populations who traded with the legionaries and benefited from the security their presence provided, fostering a complex interplay between the occupiers and the indigenous inhabitants. This deep integration into the provincial landscape, the establishment of permanent bases, and the long-term presence of legions like the Ninth further underscored their perceived permanence and importance, making the idea of their sudden, unexplained disappearance from the historical record seem even more improbable and unsettling to those who relied upon their protective shield and saw them as an enduring part of the provincial order. Such was the world shaped by the legions, a world where the sound of marching feet and the sight of the eagle standard were familiar, reassuring elements of daily life, symbols of a power that seemed boundless and eternal, a power that promised order and protection across a vast, diverse empire, a promise that the Ninth Legion had long helped to uphold through its diligent service and readiness for battle. Their story, therefore, begins not with their disappearance, but with their presence, with the solid, tangible reality of their existence as a vital component of the Roman military machine, a unit whose long history of service and unwavering discipline made them seem utterly indispensable and immune to the caprices of fate that might befall less organized or less significant forces operating on the fringes of the civilized world. They were a testament to Rome's organizational genius and its ability to mobilize and sustain large, effective armies far from the imperial center, a capability that was the envy of other powers and the foundation of Rome's dominance for centuries. A dominance built soldier by soldier, legion by legion, across vast distances and challenging terrains. Even the names of the legions carried weight, reflecting their history and their identity. Legio IX Hispana, the Ninth Legion from Hispania, a name that evoked past campaigns and regional connections. A title that was more than just a designation, but a badge of honor and a link to a specific heritage within the larger Roman military tradition, connecting the soldiers of the present to the veterans of the past. Their training was relentless, their discipline legendary, their equipment standardized and effective, creating a force that moved and fought with a precision and unity that was difficult for less organized opponents to match. A well-oiled machine, honed by generations of experience on battlefields across the known world. A force designed to conquer and to endure. This portrait of the Ninth Legion as a highly capable, deeply integrated part of the Roman military establishment serves as the necessary backdrop for the mystery that would later surround their fate, highlighting the sheer improbability of their vanishing without leaving behind a clear, undeniable trail of what transpired, challenging our understanding of how such a significant entity could simply cease to exist within the historical narrative. Their story is not just about a military unit, but about the nature of empires, the limits of power, and the surprising fragility that can sometimes lie hidden beneath the surface of even the most formidable structures. A reminder that history holds its secrets closely, sometimes allowing entire legions to slip away into the mists of time, leaving behind only questions and the echoes of their former glory. We begin with this image of strength and order, of a legion firmly rooted in the Roman world, participating in the daily life of the empire's military outposts, their presence a constant, reassuring fact. Before we turn our attention to the places and times where their story takes a turn towards the unknown, towards the silence that would eventually fall around their name, transforming them from a living force into one of history's most enduring and enigmatic puzzles, the vanished Ninth Legion, a mystery waiting in the quiet corners of the past. This initial glimpse into their established reality, their role, and their reputation provides a crucial anchor point before we delve into the uncertainty of their final years and the various theories that attempt to explain their sudden disappearance, grounding the mystery in the solid ground of what is known and documented about this once powerful and widely respected unit of the Roman army. A unit that seemed destined for continued service, but whose destiny took an unexpected and still unexplained turn, leaving behind a void in the historical record that continues to fascinate and perplex those who seek to understand the full story of the Roman Empire and the fate of its legions. Their history up to this point was one of consistent performance and unwavering loyalty, a standard bearer for the qualities that made the Roman army such an effective instrument of imperial will, a unit that had faced down barbarians, navigated political upheavals, and contributed significantly to the expansion and consolidation of Roman power across diverse and challenging theaters of operation, from the Mediterranean shores to the distant, misty lands of Britannia. This foundation of strength and reliability makes their subsequent absence from the historical stage all the more striking, a stark contrast between their well-documented past and the sudden, profound silence that surrounds their final fate, turning their story from a chronicle of military achievement into a haunting question mark that lingers across the centuries. A testament to the limits of our knowledge about the ancient world and the unpredictable nature of history itself, where even the most powerful can vanish without a trace. Their role in maintaining the Pax Romana, that period of relative peace and stability within the empire, was not merely theoretical. It was a daily reality for the populations living under Roman rule, who benefited from the security provided by these disciplined soldiers patrolling the roads, guarding the borders, and suppressing internal unrest, allowing civilian life to flourish in a way that was often impossible in less ordered societies of the time. This contribution to civilian life, the sense of security they provided, adds another layer to the mystery of their disappearance, as it wasn't just a military unit that vanished, but a force that was deeply intertwined with the well-being and prosperity of the provinces they were stationed in, leaving behind not just a military gap, but also a void in the social and economic fabric of the areas they protected. Their story is a reminder that behind the grand narratives of empires and conquests are the lives of countless individuals, soldiers who served their time, hoped for retirement, and contributed to the vast machinery of the state. And the mystery of the Ninth Legion is also the mystery of what happened to these thousands of men, their personal stories lost to time, along with the fate of their unit, a poignant reminder of the human cost hidden within the pages of history. As we prepare to delve deeper into the period surrounding their disappearance, it is important to hold on to this initial image of the Ninth Legion as a vibrant, active, and crucial part of the Roman world. A unit whose existence was a given, whose presence was felt, and whose capabilities were relied upon, setting the stage for the profound puzzle that arises when such a substantial and well-established entity simply fades from the historical record, leaving behind only speculation and the quiet echo of their former might. A mystery that invites us to ponder the fragility of even the most powerful human endeavors in the face of time and the unknown forces that shape the course of history, sometimes in ways that defy easy explanation or clear resolution. Like the vanishing of an entire legion from the vast, intricate tapestry of the Roman Empire's long and complex story, a story that continues to unfold in whispers and unanswered questions across the centuries. The vast, intricate tapestry of the Roman Empire's long and complex story continues to unfold in whispers and unanswered questions across the centuries, leading our quiet contemplation now towards the distant, often inhospitable shores of Britannia, a province situated far at the northern edge of the known Roman world where the Ninth Legion Hispana spent many years of its storied existence, facing challenges both from the untamed landscape and the restless tribes inhabiting it. Britannia, in those ancient times, was a land defined by its contrasts, a place where the ordered, stone-built world of Roman forts and nascent cities met the wild, unpredictable expanse of forests, moors, and mountains stretching endlessly beyond the constructed roads and disciplined boundaries, creating an atmosphere thick with the tension between civilization's reach and nature's enduring mystery, a feeling of being perpetually on the frontier of something vast and untamed. The air in Britannia often carried the damp chill of persistent rain and the scent of wet earth and distant peat fires, a stark difference from the sun-drenched landscapes of Italy or the drier provinces of the East, emphasizing the isolation felt by those stationed here, a sense of being posted to the very edge of the world where the familiar comforts of Rome seemed impossibly far away and the local customs and languages were alien and often hostile to Roman sensibilities and control. Life for the soldiers of the Ninth Legion stationed in this remote land was a rhythm of vigilance and labor, a cycle dictated by the demands of maintaining Roman authority in a province that frequently tested the limits of imperial power with its unpredictable uprisings and the constant need for defense against incursions from beyond the frontier, requiring an unwavering commitment to duty and a resilience forged in the face of persistent adversity and discomfort. Their days were filled with the practical tasks essential to securing the province and projecting Roman strength, including long, arduous patrols along the ever-shifting borders and into the surrounding territories, mapping the land, observing the movements of local tribes, and ensuring the safety of Roman supply lines and civilian settlements scattered throughout the conquered regions. Each patrol a potential encounter with the unknown dangers lurking just beyond the visible horizon. Building and maintaining the infrastructure necessary for Roman control was another significant part of their daily lives, involving the construction of roads that crisscrossed the landscape, connecting forts and facilitating rapid troop movement, and the erection or expansion of the very forts themselves, formidable structures of stone and earth, designed to house the legionaries and serve as centers of Roman administration and military power in strategically important locations across the province. They were also frequently engaged in skirmishes and larger military actions against the various indigenous tribes who resisted Roman rule, tribes like the Brigantes or those further north in Caledonia, requiring the Ninth Legion to be in a constant state of readiness, drilling regularly, practicing their formations, and preparing for the unpredictable nature of frontier warfare, where ambushes and guerrilla tactics were as common as pitched battles on open ground. The life of a legionary in Britannia was one of hardship and camaraderie, sharing crowded barracks, subsisting on simple rations, and relying on the bonds forged with their fellow soldiers for support and survival in a challenging environment far from home. Their letters back to families in distant lands, painting a picture of a tough but purposeful existence dedicated to the service of the emperor and the expansion of Roman influence. Officers, from the centurions who led them in the field to the tribunes and legates who commanded the entire legion, faced their own unique pressures, balancing military strategy with administrative duties, navigating the complex politics of the provincial governorship, and bearing the ultimate responsibility for the lives of the men under their command and the security of the regions they were tasked with protecting, their decisions carrying significant weight in this volatile frontier zone. These men, whether grizzled veterans nearing the end of their service or fresh recruits, experiencing the harsh realities of military life for the first time, were the human embodiment of Roman power in Britannia, their presence a constant reminder to both the native population and potential foreign adversaries that the might of the empire extended even to this remote and windswept corner of the world, a testament to Rome's enduring will to conquer and control. At the heart of the Ninth Legion's presence in Britannia was their main fortress Embark, located in what is now the city of York, a substantial and strategically vital base that served as the central hub for their operations, a place where the Legion could rest, resupply, and reorganize between campaigns and patrols, providing a semblance of stability and Roman order amidst the surrounding wilderness and the simmering tensions of the province. Embark, with its solid walls, organized barracks, administrative buildings, and even amenities like bathhouses, represented a significant anchor of Roman civilization, a miniature Rome transplanted onto British soil, standing in stark contrast to the less permanent, more fluid settlements of the native tribes, symbolizing the permanence and structure that the empire sought to impose upon the land and its people, a beacon of Roman identity and control. This fortress at Embark was not just a military camp, but a growing urban center, attracting merchants, artisans, and families who followed the legion, creating a diverse community where Roman culture intersected with local traditions, further solidifying the Roman presence and providing a small slice of familiarity for the soldiers stationed there, making the remote province feel slightly less alien and isolated from the wider empire they served. The daily routines within the walls of Embark were a microcosm of legionary life, involving rigorous training exercises in the parade grounds, the clatter of armor and weapons, the shouts of drill instructors, the constant coming and going of messengers and supply wagons, and the quiet moments of respite spent in the barracks or socializing in the vicus, the civilian settlement that inevitably grew up around the legionary fortress, catering to the needs and desires of the soldiers and their camp followers. The presence of the Ninth at Embark was a powerful visual statement of Roman dominance, their eagles proudly displayed, their standards fluttering in the British wind, their disciplined ranks marching through the streets or out onto the roads leading into the hinterland, a display of organized power and unwavering readiness that was intended to deter rebellion and maintain the fragile peace that Roman rule attempted to enforce across the province, often through sheer force of presence. This well-established, seemingly permanent presence of the Ninth Legion at Embark, deeply embedded in the landscape and the life of the province, makes their eventual disappearance all the more perplexing and profound when viewed through the lens of history, a stark and unsettling contrast between their visible, tangible reality for decades and their later complete absence from the official records, transforming their solid presence into a haunting question mark, hanging over the Roman occupation of Britannia and the wider history of the empire itself. They were a known quantity, a vital component of the military machine, their location and activities meticulously documented in the administrative records of Rome. Yet they would eventually fade from these very records, leaving behind only the faintest echoes of their time in Britannia and the enduring mystery of what could possibly have happened to such a large, well-equipped and disciplined force that it could simply vanish from the historical stage, leaving future generations to ponder their fate. The contrast between the mundane reality of their daily lives in the damp British province and the extraordinary, unexplained nature of their ultimate disappearance underscores the fragility of even the most powerful institutions when faced with the unpredictable forces of history, nature, or human conflict, reminding us that even the mightiest empires can harbor secrets and unanswered questions within their own narratives, tales of forces that simply ceased to be. Their story in Britannia, prior to the moment they are last definitively mentioned, was one of routine, resilience, and the unwavering execution of Roman duty in a challenging frontier environment, a narrative woven from countless individual lives dedicated to the service of a distant power, each soldier and officer contributing to the collective strength and presence of the Legion in this remote outpost of the Empire, unaware of the historical enigma their unit would one day become. The image of the Ninth Legion standing strong within the walls of Embark, a symbol of Roman order against the backdrop of British wilderness, serves as a poignant reminder of their tangible existence before they slipped into the realm of the unexplained, highlighting the profound shift from being a known, active entity to a historical puzzle, a legion whose fate remains shrouded in the mists of time and the enduring silence of incomplete records, a silent testament to the mysteries that history sometimes refuses to yield, no matter how diligently we search for answers or how clearly we trace the paths they once walked across the British soil. Yet, despite the diligent search across British soil, the precise point where this formidable Roman legion, the Ninth Hispana, stepped from the known stages of history into the realm of the unknown remains a subject of quiet contemplation, its fate a riddle whispered through the centuries, a silent testament to the mysteries that history sometimes refuses to yield. No matter how diligently we search for answers, or how clearly we trace the paths they once walked across the British soil. It is at this juncture, around the year 108 AD, that the reliable threads of the Ninth Legion's story in the Roman historical record begin to fray and ultimately vanish, marking a specific moment in time when a powerful military unit ceased to appear in official documents and inscriptions that meticulously tracked the movements and activities of the Empire's forces, leaving behind a noticeable and increasingly perplexing void. This period in Britannia was far from tranquil, characterized by persistent unrest and intermittent but fierce uprisings among the native tribes, particularly in the northern reaches of the province, where the Roman grip was tenuous and constantly challenged by peoples determined to resist the encroaching tide of imperial control and settlement. The presence of seasoned legions like the Ninth was absolutely essential for Rome to maintain any semblance of authority, to protect its nascent settlements, its vital supply lines, and its hard-won territorial gains against a backdrop of constant skirmishes and the ever-present threat of larger, coordinated revolts erupting from the wildlands beyond the frontier. The historical context reveals a province in a state of complex flux, where Roman administrators and military commanders were constantly juggling the demands of pacification, infrastructure development, and resource extraction, relying heavily on the disciplined might of their legions to enforce order and project power into the often hostile landscape of the British Isles. Against this tumultuous backdrop, the last definitive mentions of the Ninth Hispana appear, fleeting glimpses preserved on fragments of stone or in dry administrative lists, perhaps an inscription dedicating a building, a record of troop deployment, or a letter mentioning their presence at a specific location, each piece of evidence frustratingly isolated and incomplete, offering only snapshots rather than a continuous narrative. These final historical whispers are like the last echoes of a distant marching column fading into the fog, providing confirmation that the Legion was indeed active in Britannia around this time, yet offering no clear indication of their subsequent movements, their ultimate objective, or the circumstances that would lead to their eventual, perplexing absence from all later records, leaving historians with tantalizing but insufficient clues. The very nature of these last records, often brief and transactional, underscores the fragmented and incomplete nature of historical evidence from this era, reminding us that even for a force as significant as a Roman legion, their daily existence and eventual fate might only be incidentally captured in the surviving remnants of a vast, bureaucratic, and often chaotic empire, leaving much to the imagination and interpretation of future generations. It is within these gaps, these silences between the lines of ancient texts and the eroded carvings on stone, that the seed of the great mystery is gently sown, a quiet question beginning to form in the mind. How could a military force comprising thousands of highly trained soldiers, a unit with a long and distinguished history within the formidable structure of the Roman army, simply cease to exist in the historical consciousness without a clear, documented reason? This question is posed not with urgency or alarm, but with a subtle, persistent wonder, a sense of quiet bewilderment that such a significant component of the Roman presence in Britannia could seemingly dissolve into the historical record, leaving behind only speculation and a growing sense of an enigma that defies easy explanation or simple archival oversight. The boggling scale of the disappearance, involving perhaps 5,000 or 6,000 men along with their officers, equipment, and standards, transforms a potential administrative anomaly into something far more profound and unsettling, hinting at events of considerable magnitude that somehow escaped detailed chronicling, or whose records were subsequently lost to the ravages of time and the unpredictable preservation of ancient documents. The mystery deepens when one considers the meticulous record-keeping system of the Roman Empire, a society that prided itself on order, bureaucracy, and the detailed administration of its vast territories and military assets, making the utter lack of a clear fate for an entire legion seem almost impossible within their own structured world. Yet the silence persists, an eloquent testament to the limitations of our knowledge about the ancient world, a reminder that even the most powerful and organized empires could have events unfold on their periphery or within their complex machinery that leave behind only ambiguous traces, open to endless interpretation and debate across the centuries that follow. This initial planting of the seed of mystery is not meant to provoke fear or anxiety, but rather a gentle curiosity, a quiet invitation to contemplate the boundaries of what history can tell us and the vast, often unknowable spaces that lie beyond the reach of surviving evidence, spaces where possibilities linger like mist over the ancient British hills. The questions hang in the air, soft and persistent. Did they march into a landscape from which they could not return? Were they reassigned to a distant corner of the empire, and their records misplaced or destroyed? Or did something else, something perhaps unforeseen by the meticulous Roman administration, befall them in the wild, untamed north? These are the quiet inquiries that arise from examining the historical record around 108 AD. Inquiries that transform the study of ancient military movements into a contemplation of disappearance and the enduring power of the unexplained, setting the stage for a deeper exploration of the possibilities and the profound silence that surrounds the fate of the Ninth Legion. The political landscape in Britannia around this pivotal time was characterized by a delicate balance of Roman control in the south and increasing resistance in the north, where various tribal groups, often referred to collectively as the Caledonians, posed a constant and unpredictable threat to Roman expansion and even the security of existing Roman territories and fortifications. The Roman governors and military commanders were under immense pressure from Rome to maintain stability, suppress uprisings swiftly, and ideally push the boundaries of the province further north to secure valuable resources and eliminate potential threats to the core of the empire, a task that required the full strength and coordination of the legions stationed in Britannia. Campaigns against the northern tribes were frequent and often brutal, involving long marches through difficult terrain, logistical challenges in supplying troops far from established bases, and facing an enemy adept at guerrilla warfare, using the landscape to their advantage and avoiding pitched battles that favored Roman discipline and heavy infantry. The need for reliable and experienced troops like the IX Hispana in such a volatile environment was paramount. Their presence was a cornerstone of Roman strategy in Britannia, a symbol of imperial power and a crucial force for responding to the localized insurrections and larger tribal confederations that periodically challenged Roman hegemony. Their base at Ebrahim was strategically vital, situated at a point that allowed them to project power both northwards towards the frontier and southwards to reinforce other parts of the province if needed, highlighting their central role in the military geography of Roman Britannia during this period of ongoing conflict and consolidation. A final documented mentions of the ninth, whether on an altar stone found in the Netherlands, dedicated by a soldier who may have transferred out, or references in administrative papyri from Egypt that might or might not pertain to the legion as a whole, are scattered and open to interpretation, none offering a definitive account of a mass transfer or a catastrophic end event, contributing to the frustrating ambiguity surrounding their fate. These fragments of evidence are like scattered pieces of a mosaic from which the central image has been lost, each piece confirming a small detail about the Legion's existence or the movements of individual soldiers, but failing to provide the crucial connective tissue that explains what happened to the main body of the unit. After the early years of the 2nd century AD, the lack of a clear historical record detailing their disbandment, their transfer to another province with subsequent documented service, or their destruction in a major engagement stands in stark contrast to the fate of other Roman legions throughout the empire's long history, whose ends or reassignments are typically recorded with some degree of clarity in the extensive Roman archives. This absence of definitive information is not necessarily proof of a dramatic, sudden disappearance, but it is highly unusual for a unit of the 9th seniority and importance, suggesting that whatever happened, it either occurred in circumstances that prevented comprehensive record-keeping, or that the records themselves were not preserved in a way that allows modern historians to trace their steps beyond 108 AD with certainty. The subtle unease generated by this historical vacuum is part of the mystery's enduring appeal. It forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge about the past and to consider the possibility that even the most powerful and seemingly well-documented entities of the ancient world could, under certain circumstances, simply fade from view, leaving behind a puzzle that transcends generations of inquiry. Contemplating the silence that follows the last mention of the 9th Legion, we are reminded that history is not a complete and unbroken chain of facts, but often a collection of surviving fragments connected by educated guesses and interpretations, with significant gaps where entire narratives may have been lost or never fully recorded in the first place. This realization about the nature of historical knowledge adds another layer to the mystery, suggesting that the disappearance of the 9th might not be solely due to a single dramatic event, but perhaps also a consequence of the inherent challenges in preserving and interpreting the complex administrative and military history of a vast and ancient empire over 2 millennia. The gentle questioning of what happened to this legion invites a deeper reflection on the passage of time itself, how it erodes not just physical structures, but also the clarity of events, transforming facts into potential legends and leaving behind a landscape of half-remembered truths and tantalizing, unresolved questions that continue to capture the imagination. Thus, as we shift our focus to this specific period, around 108 AD, we are not just examining a historical date, but stepping into a moment where the solid ground of documented fact begins to give way to the shifting sands of uncertainty, where the story of a celebrated legion transitions from a record of service to an enduring question mark in the annals of Roman history in Britannia. The political machinations in Rome itself could also have played a role in the fate or the recorded fate of the 9th. Imperial transitions, changes in administrative priorities, or internal political struggles could potentially lead to the misplacement or suppression of records concerning events on the distant frontiers, adding another layer of complexity to the mystery surrounding the Legion's final years or disappearance. Britannia was, after all, a province far from the center of imperial power, often governed by individuals with considerable autonomy, and events occurring there, while important, might not always have been documented with the same urgency or completeness as those closer to the heart of the empire, particularly during times of political instability in Rome. The sheer scale of the Roman military apparatus meant that legions were constantly being moved, disbanded, reformed, or renamed across the vast expanse of the empire, a logistical undertaking of immense complexity that, while usually well documented, could conceivably result in administrative gaps or errors, especially when dealing with events on the periphery or under challenging circumstances. Considering these factors, the absence of the 9th from later records, while unusual, could potentially be explained by a combination of administrative oversight, loss of records over time, and the inherent difficulties of tracking every detail of a large military force operating in a distant and often hostile province, even for an empire as organized as Rome. However, the complete and utter disappearance from all subsequent reliable records, including those detailing troop dispositions across the empire, remains a significant anomaly that has fueled centuries of debate and speculation, separating the fate of the Ninth from the more clearly understood ends of their sister legions. The final mentions, perhaps a soldier's tombstone erected far from Britannia by a veteran who had served in the Ninth, or a fragmentary inscription from a fort listing units present at an earlier date, serve as poignant but ultimately frustrating breadcrumbs, confirming the Legion's existence up to a point, but failing to provide the conclusive evidence needed to trace their final steps or understand the nature of their end. These scattered pieces of evidence, unearthed by archaeologists and pieced together by historians over generations, highlight the detective work involved in reconstructing the ancient past, a process often fraught with uncertainty and dependent on the serendipitous survival of fragile documents and weathered stone, leaving even major historical events shrouded in partial darkness. The state of Britannia in the early 2nd century A was one of perpetual low-intensity conflict, punctuated by periods of more significant warfare, requiring the Roman legions stationed there to be constantly vigilant, ready to respond to raids, suppress revolts, and engage in punitive expeditions into tribal territories, a demanding and often dangerous existence on the edge of the known world. The IX Hispana, with its long history of service and its reputation as a reliable unit, would have been at the forefront of these efforts, its soldiers and officers accustomed to the harsh climate, the difficult terrain, and the cunning tactics of the native British tribes, making their collective disappearance all the more perplexing given their experience and capability. The need to maintain a strong military presence to protect Roman interests and project an image of unwavering power meant that the loss of an entire legion would have been a significant blow, one that the Roman authorities would likely have sought to address and, one might assume, document with a degree of seriousness commensurate with the scale of the loss, adding to the puzzle of the historical silence. The subtle unease introduced by this historical gap is not the fear of a sudden shock, but a quiet sense of contemplation about the vastness of the past and the small pockets of unknowability that persist within it, like islands of fog that refuse to dissipate, no matter how brightly the light of modern inquiry shines upon them. It is a reminder that even for a civilization as outwardly powerful and well-documented as the Roman Empire, there were frontiers, not just geographical, but also informational, places and events that somehow slipped through the cracks of their extensive bureaucracy, leaving behind only questions for those who seek to understand their history centuries later. The shift in focus to this specific moment in time, around 108 AD, is akin to zooming in on a particular section of an ancient map, only to find that a significant landmark, a major military encampment representing thousands of lives and years of history, is simply no longer marked, its absence creating a void that draws the eye and sparks the imagination with possibilities both mundane and mysterious. This deliberate pivot to the moment of last documented presence is crucial because it establishes the boundary between the known history of the Ninth Legion and the period of uncertainty that follows, highlighting the point where the narrative transitions from factual account to the exploration of potential fates and the contemplation of historical silence. By emphasizing the fragmented nature of the surviving evidence, we are not dwelling on a lack of information in a frustrating way, but rather appreciating the challenge and the intrigue of historical investigation, recognizing that piecing together the past is often like assembling a puzzle with many missing pieces, where the gaps themselves become part of the story. The gentle introduction of the mystery at this stage is intended to create a feeling of subtle wonder rather than dramatic suspense, prompting a quiet reflection on the fragility of historical records and the ease with which even significant events can become obscured by the passage of time and the loss of documentation, leaving behind only the echo of a question. The question of what happened to the Ninth Legion, introduced softly here, is not demanding an immediate answer, but rather inviting the listener to sit with the uncertainty, to contemplate the possibility that some historical questions may simply not have definitive answers waiting to be discovered, and that there is a unique kind of peace to be found in accepting the limits of our knowledge about the past. This moment of transition in the narrative, from the established history of a formidable legion to the point of their disappearance from the record, serves as a quiet pivot, guiding the listener away from the details of military life and into the contemplative space of historical mystery, setting the tone for the exploration of theories and the deeper meanings that lie within this enduring enigma from the Roman world. It is a moment to pause and consider the sheer scale of the disappearance, not in terms of military loss alone, but in terms of the human lives involved, the thousands of individuals whose stories, hopes, and fears vanished along with the Legion from the pages of history, leaving behind a collective silence that speaks volumes about the impermanence of human endeavors and the vastness of the unknown. This focus on the approximate date of 108 IE is important because it provides a chronological anchor for the mystery, allowing us to pinpoint the period after which the Ninth Legion's activities are no longer reliably traceable, creating a specific historical window for the events, whatever they may have been, that led to their disappearance from the historical stage. Understanding the political and military pressures on the Romang authorities in Britannia at this time helps contextualize the potential scenarios for the Legion's fate, suggesting that any action they were involved in, whether a campaign, a transfer, or a disaster, likely occurred within the framework of Rome's ongoing struggle to control and expand its presence in the challenging northern province. The exploration of the last surviving records is a gentle reminder of the historian's craft, the patient sifting through fragments of evidence, the careful interpretation of ambiguous texts, and the constant awareness that our understanding of the past is built upon the often accidental survival of materials across millennia, leaving inevitable gaps and points of uncertainty. By emphasizing the scattered and incomplete nature of these final mentions, the narrative reinforces the idea that the mystery is not easily solved precisely because the evidence is so sparse and open to multiple interpretations, creating a historical puzzle that resists simple answers and encourages deeper, more nuanced contemplation rather than definitive conclusions. The subtle planting of the seed of mystery at this point is like introducing a quiet chord in a piece of music, a note of unresolved harmony that creates a sense of anticipation and gentle intrigue, inviting the listener to follow the narrative as it explores the possible explanations for the Ninth Legion's fate while always returning to the core enigma of their disappearance from the historical record around 108 AD. This contemplation of the historical silence surrounding the Ninth Legion is not about finding fault with ancient record keepers or modern historians, but about acknowledging the inherent limitations of our ability to fully reconstruct the past, accepting that some questions may forever remain unanswered, their mysteries preserved within the quiet gaps of history, waiting for us to sit with the unknown and find a sense of peace in its presence. It is a lesson in humility before the vastness of time and the complexity of human events, a recognition that even the most powerful empires could not control the narrative of every single event that occurred within their borders. leaving certain stories incomplete, certain fates unknown, and certain legions forever shrouded in the mists of an ancient, unresolved mystery from the edges of the Roman world. Thus, the focus settles on this specific moment. This year, around 108A, the point where the known story of the Ninth Legion dissolves into speculation, where the robust presence of a Roman military unit gives way to a historical absence that continues to echo through the centuries. A quiet testament to the enduring power of unsolved mysteries and the profound questions they pose about the nature of history and the limits of our knowledge. This specific historical marker serves as the quiet threshold between the documented life of the Legion and the enigmatic period that follows, a point in time where the light of historical certainty dims and the shadows of the unknown begin to lengthen, enveloping the fate of the Ninth Hispana in a shroud of mystery that has captivated minds for generations, a quiet puzzle waiting to be contemplated in the stillness of the night. As the quiet understanding began to settle within him, a subtle shift occurred in Elias's perception, moving beyond the grand, abstract paradoxes of the human condition and the vast, indifferent gaze of the stars to the intricate tapestry of the everyday, the small, often overlooked details that compose the fabric of his existence, weaving themselves into a new kind of awareness, a delicate connection to the world he inhabited, a world that suddenly felt both intimately familiar and profoundly, unsettlingly alien in its quiet complexity. Following this moment, the narrative gently moves into the period after 108 AD, a time when the name of the Ninth Legion, a unit once etched firmly into the official records of the Roman Empire, began its slow, puzzling fade from view, no longer appearing. With certainty in the dispatches, or the stone inscriptions that meticulously documented the movements and deeds of Rome's formidable military machine across its vast and varied provinces. This era is marked by an almost palpable silence within the historical documentation, a striking void where the presence and activities of a legion, an entity comprising thousands of seasoned soldiers and officers, should have been clearly and consistently noted, leaving behind an absence that feels significant and deeply perplexing to modern eyes, searching for answers in the fragmented remnants of the past that have survived the ravages of time and decay. The silence in these official records is not merely an oversight, but stands as a noticeable gap for a legion of the Ninth Hispana's considerable stature and long history, a unit whose prior movements and deployments were typically recorded with bureaucratic precision, thus intensifying the sense of emptiness and the profound difficulty in comprehending their fate. When their name ceases to appear in the usual places where a legion's life was meticulously chronicled, the disappearance of the Ninth's name from the rolls of major military operations or the detailed lists of army distributions across the empire's vast territories around this time creates a historical vacuum that is both unsettling and demanding of explanation, a quiet enigma embedded within the otherwise well-documented administrative and military history of the early 2nd century AD, inviting speculation and cautious inquiry into the reasons behind this sudden narrative silence. It is as if a significant chapter was abruptly torn from the great book of Roman history, leaving only the faintest, most ambiguous marginal notes about the Ninth Legion's final disposition or dissolution, forcing subsequent generations of scholars and storytellers to confront a fundamental lack of clear, unambiguous evidence regarding the fate of a unit that had served Rome loyally for centuries across diverse frontiers, from Hispania to the cold, distant lands of Britannia. The quiet absence of the Ninth Legion in the official narratives and military registers after 108 AD stands in stark contrast to their prominent role in earlier campaigns and their established presence in key provinces, highlighting the unusual nature of their vanishing act from the historical stage and drawing attention to the incomplete and often fragile nature of the historical record itself, reminding us that even for a power as vast and organized as Rome, certain events could slip through the cracks of documentation, leaving behind only questions. One might imagine the feelings of other Romans living in Britannia or the neighboring provinces during this period, when information about the Ninth Legion gradually became vague, contradictory, or simply ceased to arrive through the usual channels of communication that linked the various parts of the empire, fostering a subtle undercurrent of anxiety, or perhaps a quiet, bewildered acceptance of the unexplained disappearance of a major military force that had been a known quantity and a symbol of Roman authority. Consider for a moment the centurion stationed at a fort further south, receiving dispatches that list the legions present in Britannia, but conspicuously omit the Ninth, prompting whispered conversations among the officers and a growing sense of unease regarding the fate of their comrades, who had been based at Embark, a key stronghold that now felt somehow less secure without the full complement of its resident legionnaires, their absence a silent question mark hanging in the damp Britannic air. Think also of the Roman merchants or administrators in Londinium or other established settlements, accustomed to the regular passage of Ninth Legionnaires on leave or on duty, noticing the diminishing frequency of these familiar faces, and perhaps hearing unsettling rumors carried on the wind from the north, stories that were vague and unsettling, hinting at troubles or movements that were not publicly explained, leaving them with a sense of disquiet about the stability of the northern frontier. There would have been a quiet, almost imperceptible shift in the collective consciousness of the Roman population in Britannia, a growing awareness of a significant absence, a blank space in the familiar military landscape that had long been defined by the presence of specific legions in specific locations. And this unexplained void would have inevitably bred speculation and a low-grade anxiety about what could have happened to such a large, well-equipped force without any clear official explanation or acknowledgement of a major disaster or redeployment. Even in Rome itself, among the families of the soldiers serving in the Ninth, or the officials responsible for managing the empire's vast military apparatus, the lack of definitive news or the cessation of regular communication from the Legion would have created a growing sense of uncertainty and concern, a private worry that mirrored the larger, public mystery of the Ninth's disappearance from the official roles and public consciousness, a personal void reflecting the historical one. The quiet acceptance that may have settled over many Romans regarding the Ninth's fate was perhaps born out of the sheer distance and the slow pace of information in the ancient world, where news of events on the far-flung frontiers could take months to arrive, and official explanations were often sparse or crafted to maintain an image of imperial control and stability, making it easier for a large, inconvenient truth to simply fade from public discourse if it lacked a clear, easily digestible narrative. This period marks the point where the story of the Ninth Legion transitions from documented history into the realm of the unresolved mystery, where the absence of evidence becomes the most compelling piece of information, forcing subsequent generations to grapple with what is not said in the records rather than what is, highlighting the limitations inherent in relying solely on official accounts when trying to reconstruct the complexities of the past and the potential for significant events to remain shrouded in ambiguity. It is in this silence, this lack of clear information after 108 day, that the first tentative questions about the Ninth Legion's fate begin to form, questions that have echoed through the centuries and continue to fuel debate and speculation among historians and enthusiasts alike, probing the possibilities behind their sudden vanishing act from the historical record and seeking to understand how such a powerful military unit could seemingly disappear without leaving behind a definitive trace of its end or its relocation. The possibilities, though cautiously considered at this early stage of contemplation, begin to emerge from the historical vacuum, prompting gentle inquiries into the nature of their disappearance. Could they have simply been transferred to another frontier, perhaps in the east, to address a pressing threat or reinforce a different border, a routine administrative decision that somehow failed to be adequately recorded or preserved in the surviving documentation? Or perhaps something more unusual, something far more dramatic and potentially catastrophic, occurred right there in Britannia, the province where they were last definitively known to be stationed, an event so complete in its destruction, or so politically sensitive in its nature, that it resulted in the effective erasure of the Ninth Legion from the official narrative, leaving behind only the unsettling void of their absence, and the quiet mystery that persists to this day, a silent question mark etched into the annals of time. The initial contemplation of these possibilities, whether a quiet redeployment gone undocumented or a more significant and tragic event on Britannic soil, marks the beginning of the long historical puzzle surrounding the Ninth Legion, a puzzle that compels us to look closer at the gaps in the record and to consider the fragility of historical knowledge, reminding us that even the most powerful empires can contain within them moments of profound uncertainty and events that defy simple explanation, leaving behind only the lingering echo of what once was and the enduring question of what truly happened. The silence in the records following 108 Adiative is not just a lack of information. It is itself a form of evidence, a testament to an event or a series of events that caused a major component of the Roman military structure to cease its documented activity in Britannia, forcing us to speculate on the nature of that cessation and to ponder whether it represented a quiet, unrecorded transition or a more abrupt and final end, a mystery deepened by the subsequent centuries of conjecture and the absence of definitive archaeological or historical proof to settle the matter with certainty and bring closure to the quiet enigma of the Ninth Hispana. This historical blank space invites the mind to wander, to consider the logistical complexities of moving or disbanding a legion of thousands and the administrative effort required to record such actions, making the lack of surviving records all the more puzzling and suggesting that whatever happened to the Ninth, it was perhaps not a standard, easily documented procedure, or that the documentation, for reasons unknown, simply did not endure the passage of time in a way that allows for a clear and unambiguous understanding of their final fate, adding another layer to the mystery. The gradual fading of the Ninth Legion's name from the official narrative serves as a quiet reminder of how quickly even significant entities can slip from the forefront of historical memory if their end or transition is not clearly and consistently documented, leaving subsequent generations to piece together a fragmented picture from incomplete sources and to confront the humbling reality that even for a civilization as meticulous as Rome, there are chapters that remain stubbornly unwritten or lost to the mists of time, preserving their secrets in the silence of the archives. One can imagine the quiet conversations in the mess halls of other Roman forts in Britannia, the soldiers and officers discussing the Ninth, wondering about their comrades, their questions perhaps met with official silence or vague assurances that did little to quell the underlying apprehension, the unknown fate of the Ninth Legion becoming a quiet, unsettling undercurrent in the daily lives of those who remained, a constant unspoken question hanging over the northern frontier and its precarious peace. The uncertainty surrounding the Ninth's fate would have permeated the atmosphere, a subtle shift in the feeling of security that the legions were meant to embody, demonstrating that even the most powerful and disciplined units of the Empire were not immune to the possibility of simply disappearing, vanishing from the known world without a clear trace, A sobering thought for the soldiers who continued to patrol the damp forests and windswept hillsides of Britannia, facing their own daily risks and uncertainties. The very act of their name no longer appearing in the familiar lists and reports transforms the IXth Hispana from a living, active military unit into a historical puzzle, an object of quiet contemplation and persistent inquiry, their story becoming less about their campaigns and victories, and more about the profound mystery of their end, a transition from tangible presence to an enigmatic absence that continues to captivate and confound those who seek to understand the full sweep of Roman history and the limits of our knowledge about the distant past and its many unsolved riddles. The period after 108 AD, marked by this significant and puzzling silence in the records concerning the Ninth Legion, serves as a quiet turning point in their story, shifting the focus from their active service to the enigmatic question of their disappearance, inviting us to delve into the possibilities, to consider the various scenarios that might explain the vanishing of such a formidable force from the historical stage, and to accept that some questions about the past may forever remain shrouded in the mists of uncertainty, their answers lost to the passage of time and the imperfect nature of historical preservation and documentation, leaving us to contemplate the quiet power of the unknown and the enduring allure of a mystery that has persisted for nearly 2 millennia. A silent testament to the fragility of human endeavors and the vastness of the unknown that surrounds even the most meticulously recorded periods of history, inviting a sense of deep, calm contemplation as we ponder the fate of the vanished Ninth, a story that unfolds gently in the quiet darkness of the night, allowing the mind to drift and wonder about the secrets held within the silent archives of the past. A soothing journey into the heart of an ancient enigma that encourages a state of peaceful reflection and calm acceptance of the mysteries that lie beyond the reach of our current understanding, settling softly into the quiet spaces of the mind as the story continues its gentle unfolding towards the deeper hours of the night, carrying the listener into a state of tranquil rest and calm contemplation about the nature of historical truth and the enduring power of the unexplained. A journey inward guided by the quiet echoes of a mystery whispered across the centuries, leading towards a peaceful and restful slumber. Beyond the dramatic possibility of utter destruction in the wild northern lands, where the mist often clung heavy to the hillsides, lay other quiet, perhaps less spoken, possibilities regarding the fate of the Ninth Legion, whispers that suggested a different kind of disappearance, one not marked by bloodshed, but by the vast, impersonal movements of a sprawling empire, a destiny that might have seen them simply absorbed into the immense administrative machinery of Rome, transferred far from the damp chill of Britannia to serve on distant, sun-baked frontiers or along remote river boundaries. This alternative narrative proposed that the Ninth, rather than meeting a swift, violent end in a single catastrophic battle against fierce northern tribes, was instead reassigned to another corner of the vast Roman world, a routine administrative decision lost in the sheer volume of imperial bureaucracy and the countless transactions of governance that kept the sprawling state functioning across continents. A quiet relocation that would leave no dramatic archaeological trace of a massacre, only a slow fading from the familiar records of their former posting in Britannia. Such a reassignment would not have been an unusual event within the dynamic military structure of the Roman Empire, where legions were frequently moved across vast distances, from the scorching deserts of North Africa to the cold forests of Germania or the complex political landscapes of the East. Their presence required, wherever new threats emerged or existing borders needed reinforcement against barbarian incursions or rival empires, a constant reshuffling of powerful units to maintain the delicate balance of power and project Rome's authority across its immense domain. The sheer size and complexity of the Roman Empire meant that the movement of even a full legion, while a significant undertaking involving thousands of men, their equipment, and support personnel, could potentially become just another entry in countless ledgers and dispatches, a logistical detail in the grand, ongoing project of imperial management, making the idea of the Ninth being sent elsewhere administratively plausible, fitting within the known patterns of Roman military deployment and the constant need to adapt to changing strategic circumstances across its vast network of provinces and client states. One common theory within this line of thought suggests the Ninth was transferred eastward, perhaps to provinces like Germania Inferior, or even further afield towards the sensitive borders, with the Parthian Empire in the Near East, areas that frequently required seasoned troops to maintain stability and deter potential adversaries, offering a logical destination for a veteran unit no longer deemed necessary, or perhaps too diminished for effective service in the challenging environment of Britannia, a posting that would move them out of the historical spotlight of the western provinces. However, the persistent and perhaps most unsettling aspect of this transfer hypothesis is the striking absence of clear, unambiguous records confirming the Ninth Legion's presence, activities, or eventual disbandment in any other province after their last known appearance in Britannia around 108 AD. A historical silence that is difficult to reconcile with the meticulously kept records that the Roman military typically maintained regarding its legions, their movements, and their fates, creating a documentary void that is almost as mysterious as a physical disappearance from the face of the earth. While scattered, debatable pieces of evidence might suggest the possibility of elements or individuals from the Ninth appearing elsewhere later in the 2nd century. There is no conclusive historical or archaeological proof of the entire legion being reconstituted or operating as a cohesive unit under its original name in any other part of the empire, leaving historians to grapple with this significant gap in the military roles and provincial records, a silence that speaks volumes about the challenge of reconstructing the past from incomplete fragments. This lack of definitive evidence for a clear transfer means that even if the Ninth was moved, its subsequent history remains shrouded in obscurity, effectively turning a potential administrative relocation into another form of vanishing. A dissolution, not through violent annihilation on a battlefield, but through a quiet absorption or disintegration within the immense, often opaque, bureaucracy of the Roman state, a fading away from the formal narrative of the empire's military might and presence, leaving behind only questions. The idea that a military unit numbering thousands of highly organized and disciplined men could simply cease to be recorded in the official histories and administrative documents of an empire as systematic and bureaucratic as Rome's is itself a profound mystery, prompting reflection on the nature of historical documentation and what might be lost to time, accident, or perhaps even deliberate omission or obfuscation within the records that have survived the intervening centuries. A reminder that our understanding of the past is always partial and subject to the vagaries of preservation and perspective. Could the disappearance from the records signify not a single dramatic event, but a gradual decline, a slow dissipation where the legion's strength dwindled through attrition, detachments sent to various locations, and a failure to be replenished, until the unit effectively ceased to exist as a functional entity, its remaining personnel absorbed into other legions or discharged, its name quietly retired without formal decree, a slow administrative death rather than a sudden violent one, a process that might leave few clear traces in the historical record. This possibility, while perhaps less exciting than tales of mass slaughter in the northern wilderness, is in its own way equally unsettling, suggesting that even the most formidable and seemingly permanent institutions of the Roman Empire could simply dissolve into the vastness of the imperial system, their existence fading from memory and record without a definitive endpoint, highlighting the ephemeral nature of even great power when confronted with the grinding forces of time, bureaucracy, and the shifting priorities of a colossal state. The lack of a clear, final disposition for the Ninth Legion challenges our modern expectation of comprehensive historical archives, forcing us to confront the reality that even for a civilization as organized as Rome, significant events or the fates of major entities could simply slip through the cracks of documentation, lost in transit, destroyed by fire or decay, or perhaps deemed too insignificant to record in full detail, once the unit was no longer considered a primary fighting force or was merged into other commands, a testament to the inherent incompleteness of the historical record. Furthermore, the potential for information to be deliberately suppressed or altered for political reasons, while speculative, cannot be entirely dismissed when considering the disappearance of a legion, especially if its fate involved failure or disgrace, raising the possibility that the silence in the records is not merely accidental, but a consequence of intentional actions to remove an inconvenient truth from the official narrative, adding another layer of deliberate mystery to an already enigmatic event. Thus, the theory of the Ninth Legion's transfer, while offering a plausible administrative explanation for their departure from Britannia, ultimately leads us back to a similar state of uncertainty, a different kind of void in the historical record that is just as difficult to definitively fill as the silence surrounding their potential destruction in the north, leaving us to ponder which form of disappearance is the more likely truth, or if the answer lies in a combination of factors, a slow decline culminating in a quiet, unrecorded end far from their former home. This exploration of alternative theories underscores the depth of the mystery surrounding the Ninth, demonstrating how even seemingly straightforward explanations, like a military transfer can, upon closer examination of the surviving evidence, reveal themselves to be just as elusive and open to interpretation as the more dramatic possibilities, reminding us that the past often holds its secrets closely, yielding only fragmented clues that require careful, humble consideration. We are left to contemplate the fate of these thousands of men, whether they perish together in a forgotten battle against painted warriors in a misty northern valley, or if their lives simply dispersed like dust across the vast map of the Roman world, their individual stories and the collective identity of their legion fading into the anonymity of imperial service and the passage of time, a quiet end for a unit that had once been a proud symbol of Rome's enduring strength and presence. This uncertainty about their final destination or fate transforms the story of the Ninth Legion from a simple historical puzzle into a deeper meditation on the nature of existence within a vast, indifferent system, where even significant entities can become lost, their individual narratives subsumed by the larger currents of history and the impersonal machinery of empire, leaving behind only the echo of their name and the persistent question of what truly became of them, a question that continues to resonate through the centuries. The contemplation of this administrative vanishing, this potential dissolution into the bureaucratic fabric of Rome, offers a different kind of melancholy than the imagined tragedy of a battlefield defeat. It is the quiet sadness of being forgotten, of fading away without a dramatic conclusion, a fate that is perhaps more common in the long sweep of history than the moments of epic struggle and glorious or tragic ends that tend to capture our imagination and dominate the historical narratives that are more easily preserved and retold across generations. It forces us to consider the countless unrecorded lives and events that constitute the true, full history of any civilization, the vast majority of human experience that never made it into official documents, inscriptions, or historical texts, the quiet ebb and flow of everyday existence, and the fates of ordinary people and units that simply lived out their purpose and then faded from the collective memory and the written record, leaving no grand mystery, only silence. The story of the Ninth Legion, viewed through the lens of potential transfer and subsequent dissolution, becomes a poignant reminder of how easily even the seemingly significant can become insignificant in the grand scheme of time and empire. How a unit that represented the formidable power of Rome could simply melt away into the administrative background, its final chapter unwritten, its fate uncertain, a quiet enigma within the loud history of a conquering power, a testament to the limits of our knowledge and the vastness of what remains unknown. This perspective invites a sense of calm acceptance regarding the limits of our historical understanding, suggesting that some questions may simply not have definitive answers available to us across the gulf of centuries, and that perhaps there is a certain peace to be found in acknowledging the mysteries that time has preserved, allowing them to remain as quiet markers of the vastness of the past and the inherent incompleteness of our attempts to fully grasp its intricate tapestry of events and lives. We can find a strange comfort in the unresolved nature of the Ninth Legion's story, recognizing that not every thread in the complex weave of history can be neatly tied off, that some narratives are destined to remain open-ended, inviting contemplation and wonder rather than offering definitive closure, a state of being that mirrors the many unanswered questions we encounter in our own lives and the world around us, fostering a sense of shared human experience across the ages, allowing the possibility that the Ninth simply dispersed into the vastness of the empire, swallowed by its administrative needs and forgotten by its record keepers, offers a different kind of quietude than the dramatic imagining of their last stand, a more subtle form of historical silence that encourages introspection on the nature of memory, documentation, and the slow, inevitable process by which even the most prominent elements of the past can recede into the shadows, becoming whispers and puzzles for future generations. This theory, while lacking the dramatic flair of a lost battle, resonates with a different kind of historical truth, one that acknowledges the immense scale and administrative complexity of the Roman world, where the fate of a single legion, while important to the men who comprised it and the province they served, could ultimately be just one small detail in the overwhelming volume of imperial activity, lost to the bureaucratic currents that shaped the empire's destiny in countless unseen ways, a quiet disappearance within the grand, unfolding narrative of Rome. Reflecting upon this possibility, we can visualize the endless roads, the bustling ports, the myriad administrative offices spread across the empire, the countless troop movements and reassignments that occurred constantly, and see how easily a single unit, even one as storied as the Ninth Hispana, could become just one more element in this vast, shifting panorama, its identity gradually diluted, its records misplaced or deemed obsolete, its story ending not with a bang, but with a quiet administrative fade into the background noise of imperial governance. A different kind of mystery, but a mystery nonetheless equally profound in its own understated way. It is a reminder that history is not always written in bold strokes of war and conquest, but also in the quiet routines of administration, the movements of paper and personnel across immense distances, the slow erosion of information, and the simple fact that not everything, no matter how significant it seemed at the time, was meticulously preserved or deemed important enough to be remembered by the future, leaving behind these enigmatic gaps that invite us to pause and consider the silent spaces in the past, the quiet possibility of an administrative disappearance. A slow dissolution into the vastness of the Roman system offers a contemplative counterpoint to the more dramatic tales of lost legions, suggesting that sometimes the most profound mysteries are not found in the thunder of battle or the clash of empires, but in the quiet processes of time, bureaucracy, and the simple fact that the past, in its overwhelming complexity, often refuses to yield its secrets neatly, leaving us to ponder the quiet spaces between the recorded events, the places where stories fade into silence. And so, the fate of the Ninth Legion remains poised between these possibilities: a dramatic, violent end in the northern wilds, or a quiet, administrative dissolution into the vastness of the Empire. Both scenarios equally lacking definitive proof, both leaving us with a sense of wonder and uncertainty, highlighting the inherent mystery that lies at the heart of our attempts to understand the distant past. A mystery that, in its unresolved nature, offers a unique kind of peace for the quiet hours of the night. Equally lacking definitive proof, both leaving us with a sense of wonder and uncertainty, highlighting the inherent mystery that lies at the heart of our attempts to understand the distant past. A mystery that, in its unresolved nature, offers a unique kind of peace for the quiet hours of the night. Beyond the grand strategies and the sweeping movements of empires, the story of the Ninth Legion, like any tale of human endeavor, is ultimately composed of the lives of individuals, the soldiers and officers who marched under its eagle standard, each a real person with hopes, fears, and a private life far from the harsh realities of the frontier. We can gently imagine their daily existence during those last recorded days, perhaps within the sturdy stone walls of the Eberacum fortress, or perhaps on a quiet, purposeful march through the damp, green landscapes of Britannia, focusing our thoughts on the small, mundane details that made up the rhythm of their existence. Picture a young recruit from Italy, perhaps carefully polishing his armor under the gray British sky, his thoughts drifting back to the sun-drenched vineyards of his home, wondering if he would ever see his family again after years of distant service to the Emperor. Consider a seasoned centurion, his face etched with the campaigns of decades, meticulously inspecting the readiness of his cohort, his mind perhaps, dwelling not on the next potential skirmish, but on the small plot of land near Rome he hoped to retire to, cultivating olives in his later years. Think of the quiet camaraderie shared around a smoky campfire on patrol, the low murmur of voices speaking of absent wives and children, of simple pleasures like a good meal or a letter from home. These moments of shared humanity, a fragile shield against the ever-present dangers of the northern frontier. Imagine the simple act of mending a worn tunic, sharpening a spear point, sharing a meager ration of bread and olives, or writing a hurried, hopeful message on a wax tablet to be sent across the sea. These ordinary actions unfolding unaware of the historical silence that would soon envelop their unit. We can reflect upon what they might have thought or felt about their fate as they faced the challenges of Britannia. Perhaps a quiet resignation to duty, a deep-seated loyalty to their legion and to Rome, or perhaps a knowing sense of unease about the unknown territories and the fierce tribes that lay just beyond the perceived boundaries of their world. Consider their feelings about the future. A future they envisioned filled with returns home, honorable discharges, and peaceful lives after years of hardship. A future that for so many of them would tragically never arrive, swallowed instead by the mists of an unexplained historical event. Their hopes for reunion with loved ones, their simple dreams of peace and security after years of service. These deeply personal aspirations underscore the profound vulnerability of individual human life when confronted by large, impersonal, historical events and the vast, indifferent sweep of time itself. We are left to ponder the countless personal stories that were undoubtedly buried along with the disappearance of the Legion. The individual narratives of courage, fear, love, and loss that vanished without a trace from the historical record, becoming silent echoes in the corridors of time. Think of the young man who dreamed of becoming a farmer, the older soldier who longed for the warmth of his Italian hearth, the officer who meticulously planned his career within the military hierarchy. All these unique lives abruptly extinguished, dissolving into the historical fog that still shrouds the Legion's final moments. The absence of detailed accounts about their end transforms these thousands of men from a military unit into a collection of lost souls, each representing a life cut short, a family left grieving or forever wondering, a personal history erased from the grand narrative of the Empire. This contemplation of the individual lives lost within the larger mystery evokes a powerful sense of empathy and a quiet reflection on the fundamental human cost that lies hidden behind the academic discussions of troop movements, political decisions, and the enigmatic gaps in ancient documentation. Their disappearance serves as a poignant reminder that history is not merely a list of dates and battles, but a complex tapestry, woven from the threads of countless individual human experiences, each thread fragile and capable of being broken or lost, leaving behind a void that can never be fully understood. We can feel a quiet connection across the centuries to these men, recognizing their basic human desires for safety, connection, and a meaningful existence, desires that transcend the boundaries of time and culture, linking their ancient lives to our own quiet contemplation of life's uncertainties. The mystery of the Ninth Legion, when viewed through the lens of these potential individual stories, ceases to be just a historical puzzle and becomes a meditation on the universal human condition, on the fragility of our plans, and on the enduring power of the unknown to shape our understanding of the past and ourselves. The silence surrounding their fate speaks volumes about the limitations of historical knowledge, about how easily the lives and deaths of ordinary people, even those serving a powerful empire, can be erased or simply overlooked by the grander narratives that survive the passage of time. Their story, or rather the lack of a complete story, encourages us to look beyond the titles and ranks and see the human beings who made up the Legion, to acknowledge the personal sacrifices and the inherent risks they face daily on the distant edges of the remote world. Far from the comforts of home. It prompts a gentle questioning about the nature of memory and remembrance, about who is remembered and why, and about the countless lives throughout history that have vanished without leaving a significant mark on the public record, their stories existing only as silent whispers in the wind. By focusing on the potential humanity behind the mystery, we transform the abstract concept of a lost legion into something deeply personal and relatable, a quiet tragedy that resonates with the universal experience of loss and the profound questions surrounding the end of a life or a collective endeavor. The image of these men, perhaps facing their final moments with courage or fear or simple confusion, adds a layer of quiet pathos to the historical enigma, making the mystery not just about what happened, but about who it happened to, reminding us of the human heart beating beneath the armor. Their collective vanishing act underscores the idea that even the most organized and powerful structures, like the Roman legions, are ultimately composed of vulnerable individuals, and their fate, when unknown, leaves a lingering sense of incompleteness, a question mark hanging over a chapter of history. This segment, in its quiet exploration of the human element, serves as a gentle pause within the larger narrative of the Legion's disappearance, inviting us to connect on a personal level with the past, not through definitive answers, but through shared human experience and the quiet acceptance of life's profound uncertainties. We allow our minds to wander gently, contemplating the faces we will never know, the conversations we will never hear, the dreams that were never realized, all belonging to the men of the Ninth Legion, now forever part of the silent, unsolved mystery of Roman Britannia. Their legacy is not just in the historical records that mention them or fail to mention them, but in the enduring human questions their disappearance evokes, questions about life, death, fate, and the vast, often unknowable, forces that shape the course of individual lives and the destinies of empires alike. Letting these thoughts drift gently, like leaves on a quiet stream, we find a certain calm in acknowledging the limits of our understanding, in honoring the silent stories that history has not preserved, and in resting with the mystery itself, finding a kind of peace in the quiet contemplation of the unknown depths of the past. So we reflect on the soldiers, the officers, the support staff, all the individuals bound together by their service in the Ninth Legion, each a small, vital part of a larger entity, their collective fate now an enduring symbol of history's enigmatic power to erase even the most formidable presences, leaving behind only questions and a profound silence where answers once resided. Their journey ended, somewhere beyond the reach of clear historical light, leaving behind an emptiness in the records that mirrors the emptiness felt by those who waited for their return. A silent monument to the human lives that were swept away by events we can only speculate about, lost to the mists of time and the wild lands of the North. And as we settle into the quiet of the present moment, the imagined faces of the Ninth Legion soldiers fade gently, their hopes and fears becoming part of the quiet atmosphere, a reminder that even in grand historical mysteries, the most touching, most resonant element is often the simple, fragile reality of the human heart. We hold a quiet space for them in our thoughts, these men who served Rome and vanished, their individual stories forever intertwined with the larger enigma, a soft, lingering question mark in the narrative of the ancient world, inviting a gentle, contemplative rest. Their presence, though gone from the historical stage, remains as a quiet echo, a reminder of the lives lived and lost, a testament to the enduring human spirit, even in the face of overwhelming uncertainty and the passage of countless centuries, leaving us with a sense of peaceful reflection on the depths of the past and the quiet mysteries that still reside there. The quiet echo, a reminder of the lives lived and lost, a testament to the enduring human spirit, even in the face of overwhelming uncertainty and the passage of countless centuries, leaving us with a sense of peaceful reflection on the depths of the past and the quiet mysteries that still reside there. Moving gently outward from the immediate fate of the Legion itself, we begin to consider the wider ripples cast by such a profound and unexplained absence, contemplating how this void, this lack of clear information about the Ninth's destiny, might have settled upon the hearts and minds of other Romans scattered throughout the distant province of Britannia, or residing in the bustling, complex heart of Rome itself. For those stationed in other forts along the wild northern frontier, or living in the more settled towns and villas further south, the silence, where news of a large, prominent legion should have been, must have felt unsettling. A quiet unease growing in the absence of official reports or familiar troop movements across the land. Imagine the conversations held in the mess halls of other legions, or whispered in the courtyards of provincial villas, where soldiers and civilians alike would have pondered the fate of their comrades or neighbors, the questions hanging heavy in the damp British air as days turned into weeks and still no clear word arrived from the north. This uncertainty would have bred a fertile ground for rumors to take root and spread like wildfire across the province, each tale more elaborate or terrifying than the last, filling the informational vacuum with speculation about ambushes, massacres, or perhaps even stranger, more mystical explanations for the disappearance of thousands of trained men. Soldiers might have spoken of overwhelming barbarian hordes descending from the misty hills, while merchants in Londinium could have whispered of a legion simply marched away to some unknown, desperate corner of the empire, vanished into the vast administrative machinery without a trace, feeding a pervasive atmosphere of doubt and quiet apprehension. Meanwhile, back in the grand, seemingly invincible city of Rome, the news of the Ninth's uncertain status would have been received with a different kind of disquiet, a subtle challenge to the carefully maintained facade of imperial control and omnipotence that the central government sought to project across its vast dominion. The emperor and his advisors, accustomed to receiving detailed reports of every victory and setback, would have faced the uncomfortable reality of a significant military unit simply ceasing to exist within their official records, without a clear, publicly palatable explanation, a gap in the otherwise meticulously documented fabric of the state. How did an empire built on order, discipline, and the systematic management of resources and manpower confront an event that defied easy categorization or public acknowledgement, a loss so complete and unexplained that it highlighted the very real limits of their power and their knowledge, even at the height of their formidable strength? The official response, or perhaps the deliberate lack thereof, would have reinforced the sense of mystery. The carefully worded communiques, or the simple absence of any mention of the Ninth in troop lists, serving only to deepen the questions lingering in the minds of those who remembered the Legion and its long history of service to Rome, docked this governmental silence. While perhaps intended to prevent panic or conceal a military failure, would have inadvertently created a larger, more enduring mystery, a historical enigma born from the intersection of a real-world event and the complex, often opaque workings of imperial bureaucracy and the desire to maintain an image of unwavering strength. Beyond the specific historical context of Rome and its vanished legion, this event prompts a broader, more contemplative reflection on how human societies throughout history and across cultures have grappled with the unsettling reality of the unexplainable. Those moments or events that resist rational analysis and leave behind uncomfortable gaps in our understanding of the world. When faced with such voids, with questions that have no readily available answers, societies often resort to filling the emptiness in predictable, yet profoundly human ways, weaving narratives and explanations that may or may not align with factual reality, but serve to provide a sense of closure or meaning where none officially exists. This can manifest as the proliferation of rumors and gossip, as individuals attempt to collectively construct an understanding through shared speculation, each retelling adding a new layer of detail or distortion to the emerging narrative, turning uncertainty into a mosaic of shared conjecture. Alternatively, the unexplainable can give rise to enduring legends and myths, stories that take on a life of their own over time, evolving beyond the initial event to become cautionary tales, heroic epics, or supernatural explanations that speak more to the collective anxieties and desires of a people than to the historical truth of what occurred. Or, as perhaps happened to some extent with the Ninth Legion, societies may choose the path of silence, a collective turning away from the uncomfortable question, allowing the event to fade from public discourse and official memory, leaving it to become a quiet, persistent mystery, relegated to the fringes of history or the realm of private speculation. This human tendency to either narrate, mythologize, or silence the inexplicable reveals something fundamental about our nature, our deep-seated need for understanding and order, and our simultaneous capacity for imagination and avoidance when faced with the limits of our knowledge and control. In the case of the Ninth Legion, the enduring mystery is not just about the fate of a military unit. It is also a quiet reflection on how an empire, and the people within it, processed a reality that didn't fit neatly into their established worldview. A powerful reminder that even the most organized and dominant forces can encounter the truly unknown. The story of their disappearance, therefore, becomes intertwined with the broader human story of confronting the limits of knowledge, of living with uncertainty, and of the various ways we attempt to impose meaning or find peace in the face of that which remains stubbornly, perhaps eternally, unexplained. It highlights how the absence of information can be just as potent as its presence in shaping perceptions and creating narratives that persist through the ages. A testament to the power of a question left unanswered to capture the human imagination and provoke ongoing reflection. Considering the impact on those left behind, the families who never received definitive news, the fellow soldiers who wondered about their fate, the officials who perhaps quietly filed away the problem, adds a layer of human poignancy to the historical riddle, connecting the grand sweep of imperial history to the personal experiences of individuals navigating an uncertain world. Their quiet anxieties, their whispered conjectures, and the official silence from Rome all contribute to the rich, complex tapestry of the mystery, demonstrating that the impact of an unexplained event extends far beyond the immediate participants, touching the lives and perceptions of many others within the social fabric. This lingering sense of the unknown, of a large, well-known entity, simply vanishing, served as a subtle undercurrent in the lives of Romans in Britannia and beyond, a quiet acknowledgement that despite their power and organization, there were forces and events that remained just beyond their grasp, residing in the realm of speculation and unresolved questions. It is a gentle reminder that history is not always a complete record of verifiable facts, but is often a landscape dotted with gaps, shadowed by uncertainties, and shaped as much by what we don't know as by what we do, inviting us to contemplate the nature of knowledge itself and its inherent limitations. And in the quiet contemplation of these historical gaps, these moments when the powerful narrative of an empire encounters the stubborn silence of the unknown, we find a space for introspection, a chance to connect with the universal human experience of confronting the mysterious aspects of existence. This connection allows us to see ourselves reflected in the distant past, in the ways people centuries ago grappled with uncertainty, finding a quiet resonance in their attempts to understand or simply live with the questions that had no easy answers, bridging the vast expanse of time with a shared sense of wonder, and perhaps a touch of quiet melancholy for the lost. Thus, the vanishing of the Ninth Legion serves not just as a historical puzzle, but as a mirror reflecting our own inclinations when faced with the unexplained, illustrating the timeless human dance between seeking knowledge and accepting the profound mysteries that remain woven into the fabric of reality. It encourages a gentle acceptance that some questions may never be fully answered, that some stories may remain forever incomplete, and that there is a unique kind of peace to be found in embracing the unknown. allowing the mind to rest in the quiet contemplation of history's enduring enigmas. This reflection on the human response to the unexplainable, from the spread of whispers to the weight of official silence, adds depth to the story of the Ninth, transforming it from a simple military mystery into a narrative about the architecture of belief, the nature of truth, and the quiet power of the stories we tell, or fail to tell, about the world around us. It underscores the idea that the absence of a clear ending can be more thought-provoking than a definitive conclusion, prompting continuous reflection and interpretation across generations, keeping the memory of the vanished legion alive, not through certainty, but through the enduring power of their unanswered question, a soft whisper across the centuries. And in that soft whisper, in the contemplation of an empire's encounter with the inexplicable and humanity's timeless response to the unknown, lies a quiet lesson about humility in the face of the vastness of history and the universe. A gentle invitation to find peace in the spaces where knowledge ends and wonder begins. This segment, therefore, delves into the human and societal reverberations of the Ninth's disappearance, exploring the quiet ways its mystery permeated the Roman world, highlighting the empire's struggle with an event it could not neatly categorize, and reflecting on the universal human tendency to fill the voids left by the unexplained with rumor, legend, or a simple, telling silence, connecting this ancient puzzle to the very core of our shared human experience and our quiet grappling with the edges of understanding. Turning our thoughts now to the vast, wild canvas of Britannia, we find a landscape that stands as a silent, enduring witness to the passage of time and the mysteries left behind by those who once walked upon its soil. This ancient land, particularly the rugged northern expanse where the Ninth Legion might have embarked upon their final, ill-fated march, holds secrets buried deep beneath layers of earth and centuries of weather. A place where history whispers softly on the wind through the moors and valleys. It is a land that remembers in its own way, not through written scrolls or spoken words, but through the quiet presence of stone, the patient growth of trees, and the persistent flow of rivers that have seen empires rise and fall, and legions fade into legend. This silent witness watches over the empty spaces where thousands of Roman soldiers once stood, a stark reminder of a vibrant presence that was abruptly and inexplicably withdrawn, leaving behind only questions and the enduring mystery that continues to captivate minds across the ages. Amidst the rolling hills and windswept plains of present-day Britannia, remnants of the Roman occupation still dot the landscape, standing as humble, 10 long reminders of a time when the eagles of Rome soared over these northern territories, a tangible link to the past. One might stumble upon a weathered section of an old Roman road, its stones worn smooth by the feet of legionaries and the wheels of carts, a faint scar upon the modern earth that traces a path taken by those long gone, connecting us directly to their physical journey. Perhaps the low, grass-covered foundations of a small fort or watchtower are visible, a simple outline on the ground that marks a place of temporary shelter and vigilance for soldiers stationed. On the frontier, a footprint left by a structure that once hummed with life and purpose, but is now silent and slowly dissolving back into the land. Even a faded, almost illegible tombstone found near a Roman site, perhaps commemorating a soldier who died far from home, serves as a poignant, quiet testament to individual lives lived and lost within the larger, now vanished entity of the Ninth Legion, each stone a whisper of a personal history subsumed by the larger, collective disappearance. These scattered relics are not grand monuments, but subtle clues, like dropped threads in a vast, unfinished tapestry, each one a gentle nudge reminding us that the Romans were here. Their presence once solid and undeniable before the great void opened and swallowed a significant part of their military might in this distant province. Over the vast expanse of centuries that have unfolded since the time of the Roman presence, time itself and the relentless forces of nature have collaborated to gently, patiently reclaim the land and cover the traces left by human endeavors, softening the edges of history. The once sharp lines of Roman camps and fortifications have been blurred by erosion and the slow accumulation of soil. Their defensive ditches gradually filled, their stone walls crumbled and overgrown with moss and ivy, becoming less like military structures and more like natural features of the terrain, the dramatic events that might have transpired here. Battles, marshes, the daily routines of military life have been absorbed into the quiet rhythm of the landscape. The urgency and noise of the past muted and transformed into the stillness of the present, indistinguishable from the rustling leaves or the flowing stream. This gradual process of natural concealment adds another layer to the mystery, making the events feel more ancient and remote, as if the land itself is deliberately guarding its secrets, allowing the passage of time to deepen the enigma rather than reveal its answers. The once clear pathways of Roman influence have become faint trails, visible only to the trained eye of the archaeologist or the imaginative gaze of the historian, requiring effort and keen observation to discern the patterns and hints left behind by those who shaped this land long ago. The landscape, in its profound and ancient wisdom, possesses a unique capacity for holding the memory of the past, not through the explicit narrative of written records, but through the quiet, steadfast presence of its physical form, a deep, non-verbal historical archive, the enduring stones of the hills, the deep, ancient soil of the valleys, and the resilient plants that carpet the ground all carry the imprint of countless generations and events, including the brief but impactful sojourn of the Roman legions, their passage marked in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. This silent mode of remembrance creates a profound connection between the present observer and the distant past, allowing us to feel a sense of continuity, a thread linking our steps today to the footsteps of Roman soldiers from nearly 2 millennia ago, fostering a contemplative bond across time. The quiet presence of the land evokes a sense of deep history, a feeling that the air itself remembers the sounds and sights of Roman Britannia, inviting us to pause and listen, not with our ears, but with a deeper, more intuitive sense for the echoes of that lost era. The landscape's ability to retain memory in this tangible, non-verbal manner underscores the idea that history is not solely confined to books and artifacts, but is also etched into the very fabric of the world around us. A living, breathing record that speaks if we are willing to perceive its silent language, contemplating the enduring landscape and its quiet connection to the past helps us to understand the profound scale of time and the way in which even the most powerful empires and formidable military units can eventually recede into the vast, encompassing memory of the earth, leaving behind only scattered whispers. The stones and soil of Britannia hold the weight of history, not just the known facts and documented events, but also the questions and the silences, the unresolved mysteries like that of the Ninth Legion, inviting us to connect with the past on a level that transcends mere historical inquiry and touches upon the timeless nature of existence itself. This silent, geological memory serves as a poignant reminder that some stories are held not in the archives of man, but in the enduring, patient heart of the land itself, waiting for those with the quiet sensitivity to listen and to feel the deep. resonant connection to the mysteries that lie beneath the surface of our everyday world. The landscape becomes a partner in the mystery, its features shaped by geological forces over eons, but also subtly marked by the brief, intense dramas of human history, holding the memory of ancient campaigns and vanished lives within its silent, stoic embrace, a testament to the enduring power of place. Standing in the quiet fields of northern England today, one can feel the weight of those forgotten centuries, the presence of the past, not as a distant echo, but as a palpable atmosphere, a stillness in the air that seems to hold the very questions that historians continue to ask about the fate of Rome's lost legion, the land itself guarding its secrets. This connection to the land, this sense of shared history etched into the rocks and soil, provides a unique perspective on the transient nature of human power and the enduring, patient strength of the natural world, offering a grounding sense of perspective when contemplating the vastness of time and the mysteries it holds. The landscape of Britannia thus remains beautiful and enigmatic, a living monument to the deep past and a silent guardian of the secrets of the Ninth Legion, its quiet presence inviting contemplation and reflection on the stories that the earth remembers, long after the voices of those who lived them have faded into the mists of time. Following the uncertain fate of the Ninth Legion, whether they vanished into the northern mists or lost in distant lands, the Roman presence in Britannia began to shift its focus, moving from ambitious expansion deep into unconquered territories, towards a strategy of consolidation and defense along a clearly defined frontier. The years that followed their last recorded movement saw the rise of a colossal undertaking, a monumental project that would forever scar the landscape of northern Britannia and stand as a stark, enduring testament to the limits of imperial power and the persistent dangers lurking beyond the perceived boundaries of civilization. This immense endeavor was the construction of Hadrian's Wall, initiated by Emperor Hadrian himself during his visit to Britannia in 122 AD, a physical barrier stretching from coast to coast, designed to separate the Roman province from the lands of the unconquered northern tribes. The building of this wall was a staggering feat of engineering and human labor, involving thousands of soldiers from the remaining legions in Britannia, as well as countless auxiliary troops and local workers, all toiling in harsh conditions across varied and often unforgiving terrain. They quarried stone, dug vast ditches, built mile castles and turrets at regular intervals, and erected forts along its length, creating a formidable structure of stone and turf that would eventually span some 73 Roman miles, a solid line drawn across the wild landscape. The wall itself was more than just a physical fortification. It was a powerful symbol, a tangible representation of the boundary between the ordered world of Rome and the chaotic, unknown wilderness that lay to the north. A line in the sand, or more accurately, a line of stone and earth against the perceived threats from Caledonia. It marked the northernmost reach that the empire was willing or able to definitively hold, an acknowledgement that the ambition of total conquest in this remote island province had perhaps reached its practical and logistical limits, a quiet admission of where Rome's dominion ended. This great barrier also served as a psychological boundary, reinforcing the distinction between us within the Roman province and them dwelling in the lands beyond the wall, shaping the identity of those who lived on either side of this imposing structure. Crucially, the construction of Hadrian's Wall can also be seen through a contemplative lens as a subtle, perhaps even subconscious, response to the vulnerability that the disappearance of the Ninth Legion had exposed. a need to solidify and make visible. A border that had proven so tragically porous. If a whole legion, a symbol of Roman strength and organization, could simply vanish in the north, then perhaps a more robust and undeniable physical marker was needed to project an image of control and security, even if that control was, in reality, finite and sometimes precarious. Consider the soldiers and workers who labored on the wall, chipping away at stone, hauling heavy loads, and laying the foundations of this immense barrier day after day, their hands calloused, their backs aching under the northern sky. They were the successors to the men of the Ninth, inheriting the duty of guarding this frontier, but perhaps they also inherited the lingering shadow of that legion's fate. A story whispered in the barracks or around campfires at night. Did they know, or did they merely speculate in hushed tones about what had truly happened to their predecessors? That large body of trained fighting men who had simply ceased to exist in the official records of the Empire? Was the mystery of the IX Hispana a ghost that haunted the construction sites, a silent question mark hanging over the very ground they were fortifying, a reminder that even the mightiest legions were not invincible against the forces of the wild and the unknown? Perhaps as they laid stone upon stone, they were building not just a wall against the northern tribes, but also a barrier against the unsettling thought that such a disappearance could happen again, a physical manifestation of their desire for security in an insecure world. They were building a structure of permanence in a land where permanence had proven elusive for one of Rome's most trusted military units. A solid line drawn against the fluid, unpredictable nature of the frontier, and the mysteries it held within its misty valleys and dark forests. The shared labor, the common goal of completing the wall, may have fostered a sense of solidarity among the builders, but the unspoken question of the Ninth's fate must have occasionally surfaced. A cold shiver in the damp northern air. Did the centurions leading the work parties ever speak of the Ninth, sharing cautionary tales, or simply shaking their heads at the inexplicable void left in the military rolls? A void that no amount of stone and mortar could truly fill or explain away. Did the common soldiers, perhaps veterans who had served alongside men of the Ninth in other campaigns before being transferred to Britannia, feel a sense of unease or melancholy as they built this wall on the very edge of the known world where their comrades had last been seen or heard from? The sheer scale of the wall, its unwavering lines stretching towards the horizons, must have been both a source of pride in Roman capability and a somber reflection on the vastness of the task and the formidable nature of the forces that necessitated such a structure in the first place. Building a wall of this magnitude was an admission of limitations, a strategic decision to consolidate rather than continue pushing into the unknown dangers from which the Ninth Legion had seemingly never returned. A stark acknowledgement that Rome had found its match, or at least its boundary, in this remote corner of the world. Hadrian's Wall, therefore, stands today not only as an archaeological marvel and a testament to Roman engineering, but also as a silent, imposing monument to the enigma of the Ninth Legion, a physical embodiment of the questions that linger about their fate. Its stones do not speak, yet they tell a story of a frontier pushed to its breaking point, of the inherent risks of empire, and of a loss so profound or so mysterious that it necessitated the erection of this massive barrier as a declaration of the empire's new limits. The wall is a permanent feature in a landscape that remembers transient events, a solid line drawn across the land where a legion of men, full of life and purpose, simply faded from history, leaving behind only silence and speculation. It is an unspoken acknowledgement of the dangers that lay beyond the controlled territories, the fierce independence of the northern tribes, and perhaps the unsettling power of the unknown that could swallow a force as organized and powerful as a Roman legion without leaving a trace. The builders, the soldiers, the workers, they laid the stones of the wall, perhaps with hope for greater security, but those stones also carry the weight of the past. The lingering questions about the men who disappeared into the very wilderness. The wall was meant to contain Dot in the quiet presence of the ancient stones of Hadrian's Wall. One can still feel the weight of that history, the echoes of the labor that built it, and the persistent, unsolved mystery of the Ninth Legion, a story etched not in words, but in stone and silence. Along the northern edge of the Roman world, the wall stands as a boundary between worlds, a physical manifestation of a strategic retreat, or perhaps a necessary consolidation, a line drawn by an emperor who recognized that even the mightiest empire had frontiers it could not cross. Without incurring losses, it could not explain or afford to repeat. It is a monument to vigilance, a symbol of defense, but beneath its surface, within its very structure, it holds the memory of vulnerability, of a moment when the seemingly unstoppable advance of Rome faltered, leaving behind a void where a legion once stood. The men who built it might have looked north, towards the misty hills and valleys, and wondered what forces had claimed the ninth, and whether the wall they were painstakingly constructing would be enough to keep those forces at bay, a silent prayer built into the very fabric of the stone. Hadrian's Wall, in its enduring presence, serves as a constant, quiet reminder that some questions remain unanswered, some losses remain unexplained, and that even the most powerful empires must eventually draw a line. Acknowledging the existence of mysteries and dangers that lie just beyond their reach. It is a historical landmark, yes, but also a profound symbol of the limits of human knowledge and control when faced with the vast, unpredictable tapestry of history and the persistent, haunting power of the unknown, embodied by the vanished Ninth Legion and the silent wall built in their wake. Yet, as the quiet understanding began to settle within him, a subtle shift occurred in Elias's perception. He started moving beyond the grand, abstract paradoxes of the human condition. He also moved past the vast, indifferent gaze of the stars. Above, his focus shifted towards the intricate tapestry of his everyday life instead. He began to notice the small, often overlooked details composing the fabric of his existence. These once ignored details started weaving themselves into a new kind of awareness for him. This growing awareness formed a delicate connection to the world he inhabited daily. Suddenly, that familiar world felt both intimately known and profoundly alien in its quiet complexity. Across the long stretch of centuries, since that Roman age faded into the mists of time, the tale of the Ninth Legion's disappearance has refused to merely become a forgotten footnote in dusty historical records. Instead, it has taken on a life of its own, transforming into a fertile ground for myth, legend, and the boundless reaches of human imagination, whispered about in hushed tones or boldly reimagined in countless narratives. It is a story that seems to tap into something deep within the collective consciousness, a resonant chord that vibrates with the allure of the unknown and the enduring power of a mystery that has stubbornly resisted definitive answers. This historical enigma, shrouded in uncertainty and the silence of official accounts, has proven to be an irresistible canvas upon which generations have projected their fears, their fantasies, and their innate human need to find patterns and explanations, even where none are readily available. the transformation of this ambiguous historical event into a source of dramatic stories, wild speculations, and fictional works highlights just how profoundly the human mind craves resolution and narrative closure, especially when confronted with an abrupt and unexplained void in the past, where the formal histories offer only a frustrating lack of detail or a sudden cessation of records concerning a major military unit. The realm of legend and folklore steps in, eagerly filling that empty space with tales of catastrophic battles against fearsome northern tribes, or perhaps even stranger, more mystical fates that befell the soldiers. These popular narratives, often born from rumor and embellished over time, stand in stark contrast to the quiet, almost indifferent silence of the official Roman archives, revealing the fundamental difference between the dry chronicling of facts, or lack thereof, and the vibrant, ever-evolving way human culture processes and preserves its past. The disparity between the terse, uninformative inscriptions or administrative lists and the rich, imaginative stories that sprang up around the Ninth Legion's fate demonstrates humanity's persistent drive to tell stories and make sense of the world, even when the factual foundation is frustratingly thin or entirely absent thought. It shows how the human need for narrative can transform a simple, unexplained absence in the record into an epic saga, a cautionary tale, or a thrilling adventure, each version reflecting the hopes and anxieties of the era in which it was told rather than the likely mundane, albeit tragic, reality of the Legion's end. This enduring fascination with the vanished Legion begs a deeper question. Why, of all the countless historical events and military units lost to time, has this particular mystery maintained such a powerful and lasting grip on our collective imagination across nearly 2 millennia? Perhaps its enduring appeal lies in the fundamental human fear of disappearing without a trace, of being utterly lost to the world with no marker, no grave, and no final record of one's fate, a fear that resonates deeply with our own anxieties about mortality and significance. The idea of thousands of trained, disciplined soldiers, a symbol of Rome's formidable power, simply vanishing into the mists of a distant land, touches upon a primal fear of forces beyond human control. Whether those forces are the unforgiving brutality of nature, the overwhelming strength of an unknown enemy, or something else entirely, something perhaps more mysterious. Might also be that the very ambiguity of the Ninth's fate allows for endless possibilities, inviting each generation to project its own interpretations and fears onto the blank canvas of the unknown, making the story infinitely adaptable and perpetually relevant to new anxieties and new forms of storytelling. The mystery serves as a potent reminder that even the most powerful empires and seemingly invincible forces are ultimately vulnerable to the passage of time, the unpredictability of the world beyond their borders, and the simple, stark reality that sometimes things just disappear, leaving behind only questions and the echoes of what once was. The legends and fictional accounts, ranging from straightforward historical novels attempting to reconstruct a plausible scenario to fantastical tales involving ancient curses, supernatural forces, or even time travel, illustrate the vast spectrum of responses to this historical puzzle, each a testament to the power of human creativity when confronted with a vacuum of knowledge. These narratives, while often departing significantly from historical probability, serve a cultural purpose, allowing us to confront and process the unsettling nature of the unknown in a safe, imaginative space, transforming a potentially bleak historical void into a source of wonder, terror, or contemplation. The way these stories have evolved over time, adapting to different cultural contexts and literary genres, from early medieval chronicles hinting at disaster to modern thrillers and historical fiction, demonstrates the dynamic nature of how mysteries live on, constantly being reinterpreted and reshaped by the societies that remember them. Consider the sheer volume of books, films, and television series that have taken the Ninth Legion's disappearance as their central premise or a significant plot point, each adding another layer to the accumulated mythology and further cementing the Legion's place not just in history, but in the shared landscape of popular culture and its fascination with unresolved enigmas. This persistent retelling and reimagining of the story suggests that the factual truth, whatever it may be, is perhaps less compelling to the human spirit than the potent symbol of a powerful force swallowed whole by the unknown, a symbol that speaks to our own vulnerability in the face of a vast and often inscrutable universe. The legends act as a kind of cultural coping mechanism, allowing us to weave a narrative fabric over the uncomfortable bareness of historical uncertainty, providing explanations, heroes, and villains where the historical record offers only silence and conjecture, giving form to the formless fear of vanishing. Through these stories, the soldiers of the Ninth Legion, otherwise lost to the anonymity of history's mists, gain a kind of immortality, not as individuals remembered for their deeds, but as archetypes in a grand, tragic narrative about the limits of empire and the enduring power of the wild places beyond its reach. The fascination is perhaps amplified by the stark contrast between the highly organized, meticulously documented nature of the Roman military machine and the utter lack of a clear fate for this one, seemingly vital component making its vanishing feel like an impossible anomaly in an otherwise ordered world. It highlights how even the most bureaucratic and record-keeping societies can have blind spots, moments where the meticulous cataloging of existence fails, leaving behind only a question mark that grows larger and more intriguing with every passing year and every new attempt to answer it. The appeal also lies in the geographical setting, the rugged, mysterious northern edge of the known Roman world, a place already steeped in local legends and perceived as a land of mist, wildness, and formidable, perhaps even supernatural, inhabitants, making it a fitting stage for a story of inexplicable disappearance. The image of thousands of Roman soldiers, symbols of civilization and order, marching into this wild, untamed territory, and never returning is a powerful one, tapping into ancient fears of the wilderness and the unknown dangers lurking just beyond the boundaries of the familiar and the controlled. This transition from historical event to cultural myth reflects a deeper human truth. Our past is not just a collection of facts, but a living, breathing entity constantly being reshaped by our present needs, our fears, and our endless capacity for wonder and storytelling, especially when confronted by the tantalizing prospect of a secret waiting to be uncovered. The story of the Ninth Legion becomes a mirror, reflecting back not just the ancient world, but our own modern fascination with the unexplained, our love for a good mystery, and our persistent hope that perhaps, one day, the veil of history might lift just enough to reveal the truth behind the legend. Yet, it is precisely the lack of a definitive answer that gives the myth its power, allowing it to adapt and resonate across different eras and cultures, a testament to the fact that sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones that remain forever unfinished, leaving us to ponder the possibilities in the quiet spaces of our own minds. The mystery invites us to become participants, to imagine ourselves in that time and place, to speculate on the fate of those lost soldiers, engaging our own creativity in the act of contemplation, turning a historical enigma into a personal journey of thought. This journey through the legends and myths surrounding the Ninth Legion reminds us that history is not just about what was recorded, but also about what was lost, what was forgotten, and what was transformed by the human need to tell stories, to find meaning, and to confront the enduring presence of the unknown in our world. And so, the legend persists, a quiet whisper across the centuries, a reminder that even the mightiest empires can harbor secrets that time refuses to yield, leaving behind only the echo of footsteps marching north into the mist and the endless possibilities conjured by the human heart. When faced with the profound silence of history's greatest unsolved mysteries, it is a story that lives not just in academic texts or archaeological reports, but in the shared cultural memory, in the books we read and the films we watch, a testament to the power of a mystery to transcend its historical context and become a timeless symbol of the unknown. This enduring fascination underscores a simple truth: human beings are storytellers by nature. And when history presents us with a gap, an absence, a question mark where there should be a clear answer, we cannot resist the urge to fill it with tales, to imagine the possibilities, to spin narratives that satisfy our craving for meaning. And drama, even if they are purely products of our own minds. The Ninth Legion's Vanishing Act provides a perfect stage for this fundamental human trait, inviting us to speculate, to dream, and to create, ensuring that while the Legion itself may be lost, its story, or rather, the many stories born from its mystery, will continue to live on, captivating minds for generations to come. It is a powerful example of how a single historical event, or the lack thereof, can become a catalyst for 1,000 narratives, each adding to the rich tapestry of human culture and its complex relationship with the past, the unknown, and the stories we tell ourselves to make sense of it all. The quiet persistence of this legend in the face of historical silence is a profound statement about the human condition itself. Our deep-seated curiosity, our fear of oblivion, and our unending quest to understand the forces that shape our world and our destiny, even when those forces remain stubbornly, beautifully, and hauntingly mysterious. This enduring mystery touches upon our own mortality and the fear that our lives, like the Legionnaires, might one day simply vanish, leaving no trace, no memory, save perhaps a whispered legend or a forgotten question mark in the annals of time. A thought that humbles and resonates deeply. Yet, there is also a strange comfort in this shared human experience of facing the unknown, of collectively pondering these vast historical questions. A quiet communion across time with all those who have ever wondered about the fate of the Ninth, connecting us through the simple act of contemplation. The legends, while not factual history, serve a purpose by keeping the memory of the Ninth Legion alive, transforming them from potential victims of a forgotten skirmish into figures of epic, if tragic, renown, granting them an afterlife in the realm of story and imagination, a place where they can never truly be lost. This transformation, from historical unit to cultural icon, is a fascinating phenomenon, demonstrating how the human need to remember, to understand, and to create can elevate even the most obscure historical puzzle into a subject of widespread and lasting fascination, a testament to the power of a good mystery. And so, the stories continue to be told, each new interpretation adding another layer to the complex mythology of the Ninth Legion, ensuring that their enigmatic fate remains a vibrant part of our cultural landscape. A quiet, persistent question mark hanging in the air, inviting us to wonder, to imagine, and to contemplate the vast, beautiful, and often mysterious tapestry of human history. It is a story that reminds us that history is not always a clear, linear progression of known facts, but often a landscape dotted with islands of certainty surrounded by vast oceans of the unknown. And it is in navigating these oceans that our imagination truly takes flight, seeking shores of understanding that may or may not exist. This willingness to embrace the unknown, to find beauty and meaning in the questions rather than just the answers, is perhaps one of the most profound lessons offered by the enduring mystery of the Ninth Legion, a quiet invitation to contemplate the limits of our knowledge and the boundless potential of our imagination. Through the countless legends, the Ninth Legion lives on, not as a military unit, but as a symbol of the unknown, a testament to the stories we tell, and a gentle reminder that some mysteries are meant to remain, quietly beckoning us to ponder their depths and find peace in the contemplation of what we cannot fully grasp. Returning now to the realm of modern archaeological findings and contemporary historical analysis, we gently consider the diligent endeavors undertaken by today's dedicated historians and archaeologists who tirelessly strive to unearth further knowledge regarding the ultimate fate of the enigmatic Roman Ninth Legion. Their work involves the meticulous sifting through layers of earth, a careful examination of ancient texts, and the patient assembly of fragmented clues, often yielding results that are far from definitive or immediately clear, highlighting the profound patience required when confronting the distant echoes of the past. This process is characterized by a slow, deliberate pace, a deep respect for the subtle nuances of evidence, and a necessary humility in the face of vast historical unknowns. Recognizing that the past holds many secrets that do not readily surrender to investigation, we contemplate the quiet persistence of these modern scholars who dedicate their lives to piecing together the fragmented narrative of what might have transpired, understanding that each small discovery, each revised interpretation, contributes to a larger, though still incomplete, understanding. Their efforts demonstrate that the pursuit of historical truth is not always marked by dramatic breakthroughs, but more often by incremental steps, patient observation, and the willingness to revise previous assumptions based on new data, however sparse it may be. This ongoing research, even when it doesn't provide a definitive answer to the Ninth Legion's disappearance, enriches our understanding of the Roman world, its military structure, and the challenges it faced on its distant frontiers, adding layers to the mystery itself. We can discuss, in a soft and contemplative manner, any recent findings that might shed a faint new light on the subject, or perhaps reinterpretations of older pieces of evidence that offer a slightly different perspective on the available information, showing how even long-standing historical mysteries can be gradually illuminated. Over time, these new perspectives might come from the re-excavation of a known site, the discovery of a previously overlooked inscription, or the application of new scientific techniques to old artifacts, each contributing a small piece to the complex puzzle. Such developments gently remind us that history is not a static collection of facts, but a living, evolving field of study, constantly being re-examined and re-understood through the lens of present-day knowledge and technology. Though the core mystery may persist, this continuous process reveals that while complete resolution may never be achieved, the persistent act of seeking answers itself deepens our connection to the past and highlights the enduring human desire to understand our origins and the events that shape the world we inhabit today. We might consider specific examples of archaeological sites in Britain or elsewhere in the former Roman Empire where potential traces of the Ninth Legion have been sought or debated, reflecting on the challenges of attributing finds definitively to a specific unit after so many centuries have passed. The identification of stamps on tiles or bricks, the style of military equipment found at a site, or the location of known Roman fortifications are all pieces of the puzzle that archaeologists carefully analyze, hoping to find a conclusive link to the vanished legionnaires. Yet, the evidence often remains ambiguous, open to multiple interpretations, leaving room for continued debate and speculation among experts, which is a natural part of the historical and archaeological process. The lack of clear inscriptions explicitly stating the Ninth Legion's presence or demise in a particular location after 108 AD remains a significant factor contributing to the enduring mystery. A silence in the stone record that speaks volumes about the difficulty of definitive proof. We can reflect on the nature of historical knowledge itself during this contemplation, acknowledging that it is inherently an incomplete portrait of the past, assembled from scattered fragments and imperfectly preserved records. Like piecing together a mosaic with many missing tiles, history is built upon these disparate pieces of evidence: written documents, archaeological remains, linguistic clues, and even oral traditions, each offering a partial glimpse into a reality that can never be fully reconstructed or experienced directly. There are always gaps in our understanding, voids that cannot be completely filled by the available information, requiring historians to make educated inferences and construct plausible narratives based on the best evidence available, while acknowledging the inherent uncertainty. This inherent incompleteness is not a weakness, but a fundamental characteristic of historical inquiry, a reminder that our perception of the past is always mediated by the passage of time, the vagaries of preservation, and the biases of those who recorded events. Contemplating this aspect of historical knowledge fosters a sense of humility, recognizing that we can never truly know everything about past events, and that the most we can hope for is a nuanced and well-supported interpretation of the surviving evidence. It teaches us patience and the value of critical thinking, encouraging us to question our assumptions and remain open to new interpretations as new evidence emerges, or as existing evidence is re-evaluated through a different lens. Understanding the nature of historical knowledge, with its inherent gaps and uncertainties, allows us to appreciate the mystery of the Ninth Legion, not as a frustrating lack of information, but as a profound illustration of how the past interacts with the present. It shows us that history is not a finished book, but an ongoing conversation between the present and the past, where questions remain open and the search for understanding continues across generations of scholars and curious minds alike. This perspective can be deeply calming, as it encourages us to embrace the unknown rather than fear it, finding a certain peace in the recognition that some puzzles may never be fully solved, and that is perfectly acceptable within the grand sweep of time. That we learn to appreciate the process of inquiry itself, the journey of seeking knowledge, as being as valuable and enriching as the destination, which in the case of the Ninth Legion remains shrouded in the mists of time and speculation, inviting endless contemplation. It highlights the difference between factual certainty, which is often elusive in the distant past, and plausible understanding, which can be built through careful analysis and thoughtful consideration of the available evidence. Acknowledging limitations, this gentle exploration of historical research methods and the nature of evidence brings us back to the core of the Ninth Legion story, framing its disappearance not just as a singular event, but as a case study in the challenges and rewards of trying to understand a world long gone. It underscores the fact that even for a civilization as well documented as the Roman Empire, significant blanks exist in the historical record, reminding us that our knowledge is always partial and contingent on what has survived the relentless passage of centuries. This realization can be a comforting thought, a gentle reminder that it is okay not to have all the answers, that some questions are meant to linger, encouraging continued curiosity and the quiet, persistent pursuit of knowledge. Thus, the modern efforts to understand the Ninth Legion's fate become part of the story itself, a testament to the enduring human fascination with the past and our unyielding desire to connect with those who walked the earth before us, even when their final steps remain a mystery. These historians and archaeologists, working quietly in libraries, archives, and excavation sites, are the modern keepers of this ancient mystery, ensuring that the questions about the Ninth Legion continue to be asked, and the search for answers, however elusive, continues. Their dedication is a form of dialogue across time, a conversation with the silent stones and faded scrolls left behind by the Romans, attempting to coax out whispers of truth from the vast silence of history, a truly profound and humbling endeavor. Through their patient work, the legend of the Ninth Legion remains alive, a subject of serious academic inquiry as well as popular fascination, bridging the gap between rigorous historical method and the enduring human love for a good, unsolved mystery that sparks the imagination. Each new paper published, each artifact cataloged, each site surveyed adds another potential thread to the tapestry. Even if that thread doesn't definitively lead to the Legion's final destination, it deepens the texture of our understanding of the historical context. This ongoing process is a beautiful illustration of how history is a dynamic field, constantly being shaped and refined by new discoveries and interpretations, ensuring that the past is never truly settled or fully known, but always open to further exploration and contemplation. It invites us to appreciate the work of those who patiently labor to illuminate the past, understanding that their efforts, while perhaps not providing a simple solution, enrich our world by keeping these ancient stories and their inherent mysteries alive for future generations to ponder. We can find a quiet satisfaction in contemplating the vastness of time and the fragmented nature of our knowledge, recognizing that the mystery of the Ninth Legion is not a failure of history, but a poignant example of its fundamental character, built on interpretation and the careful handling of incomplete evidence. This segment, dedicated to the modern pursuit of the full Ninth Legion's ghost, serves as a bridge between the ancient past and our present, highlighting the continuity of human curiosity and the timeless appeal of a puzzle that has captivated minds for nearly 2 millennia. A gentle link across the ages. It encourages a quiet reflection on our own place within the long sweep of history, understanding that, like the Romans, we too are leaving behind traces that future generations may one day attempt to piece together, pondering our own mysteries and unknowns. Thus, the story of the Ninth Legion's disappearance continues to unfold, not in dramatic new revelations, but in the quiet, persistent work of those who respectfully engage with the past, honoring its complexities and its silences, finding meaning in the very act of seeking understanding itself. This segment reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge, especially historical knowledge, is a journey of discovery and interpretation, filled with both moments of potential insight and vast stretches of uncertainty, requiring both intellect and a deep sense of wonder. It is through this patient, humble approach that we can truly appreciate the depth of the Ninth Legion's mystery, not just as a military question, but as a philosophical one about the limits of our knowledge and the enduring power of the unknown to capture our imagination and inspire contemplation across the centuries. Across the centuries, we are left with fragments, whispers of possibility, and the profound silence that surrounds the fate of Rome's Ninth Legion, a silence that history has never truly managed to fill with certainty. We have gathered scattered clues from stone inscriptions, from administrative records that suddenly cease, and from the geographical context of a remote, wild province, assembling a tentative picture of their last known presence. Yet, despite the dedicated efforts of historians and archaeologists, the fundamental question persists, echoing across the vast expanse of time. Where did they go, and what truly became of those thousands of seasoned soldiers who seemingly vanished from the official memory of the Roman Empire? This enduring mystery is not merely an academic puzzle confined to the dusty archives of ancient military history, concerning only troop movements and frontier skirmishes in a distant land like Britannia. Its significance runs far deeper, touching upon universal themes that resonate even today. Speaking to the inherent fragility of even the most formidable power structures humanity has ever built up, it serves as a quiet, persistent reminder that even the mighty reach of Rome, with its legions marching across continents, its intricate bureaucracy, and its unwavering belief in its own permanence, had its limits dot beyond the carefully constructed walls and paved roads of their civilization, lay a world vast, unpredictable, and capable of swallowing entire armies without leaving a trace. A testament to the untamed forces that human order could not always contain or comprehend. The story of the Ninth Legion's disappearance is also a poignant reflection on the relentless power of time itself, how it can slowly, inexorably erode even the most solid evidence, blurring the lines between fact and legend until the truth becomes an elusive ghost. What were once undoubtedly real people, with their daily routines, hopes, and fears, their families waiting in distant lands, have been reduced by the passage of nearly 2 millennia to little more than a name on a list that abruptly ends, a footnote in the grand, sweeping narrative of an empire. Their story underscores how time can transform vibrant human lives and dramatic events into an abstract historical problem, a subject for scholarly debate rather than a lived reality, emphasizing the profound distance that separates us from the past we try so hard to understand. This particular Roman enigma is far from being an isolated incident in the long, winding tapestry of human history, for our past is riddled with countless other mysteries, large and small, that continue to defy complete explanation. From the construction of the pyramids to the purpose of Stonehenge, from the fate of lost civilizations to the meaning of ancient texts we cannot fully decipher, history presents us with myriad questions that remain stubbornly unanswered, leaving tantalizing gaps in our collective knowledge. Our own lives, too, are filled with personal mysteries, with moments and motivations we cannot fully grasp, with relationships whose true depths remain partially obscured, and with a vast, unknown future that stretches before us, full of potential and uncertainty. We encounter unexplained coincidences, feel the weight of unspoken thoughts, and grapple with the fundamental questions of existence that have no simple or definitive answers, mirroring the larger historical puzzles on a more intimate, personal scale. Just as we must learn to live with the inherent uncertainties of our own journeys, perhaps there is a quiet wisdom to be found in accepting that not every historical event, not every human story, needs to be neatly tied up with a conclusive explanation. Indeed, sometimes, the true beauty and profound depth of a story lie precisely within its unresolved nature, in the space left open for contemplation, for imagination, and for acknowledging the limits of what we can ever truly know about the past and the world. Around us, the enduring mystery of the Ninth Legion invites us to sit with this uncertainty, to feel the weight of the unknown, not as a source of frustration, but as an invitation to humility and wonder, recognizing that the past, like the universe, holds secrets it may never fully relinquish. It encourages a gentle, contemplative approach, one that values the process of questioning and reflection as much as the pursuit of definitive answers, acknowledging that some historical echoes are meant to linger, their power amplified by their very elusiveness. This acceptance of the unknown can bring a peculiar sense of peace, a release from the need to constantly seek closure, allowing us to appreciate the story for what it is, a powerful reminder of the dynamic, ever-changing nature of empires, peoples, and the passage of time itself. It allows us to connect with the past, not just through facts and figures, but through the shared human experience of confronting the inexplicable, of wondering about those who came before us and the worlds they inhabited, worlds that could disappear like mist. The story becomes a meditation on presence and absence, on the enduring structures humans build and the fragile lives lived within them, all subject to the grand, indifferent forces of history and nature that can sweep them away without a trace, leaving only questions behind. We can find solace in the quiet contemplation of such mysteries, understanding that the act of pondering the unknown is itself a form of connection, a way of bridging the vast chasm of time that separates us from the soldiers of the Ninth. Their silent disappearance becomes a mirror, reflecting our own journey through life, filled with moments of clarity and stretches of ambiguity. A gentle reminder that not every path taken, not every ending, is clearly marked or fully understood, that it teaches us a form of patience, a willingness to reside in the space of not knowing, finding a different kind of richness there, a richness derived from the possibilities that bloom in the absence of certain answers, the fertile ground of the imagination. And so, as we draw towards the close of this exploration, we carry with us not a definitive solution, but a deeper appreciation for the mystery itself, for its power to intrigue, to humble, and to remind us of the vast, beautiful complexity of history and existence, that the vanished Ninth Legion stands as a quiet monument to the limits of human knowledge and the boundless capacity of the past to surprise and captivate us, a timeless enigma that encourages us to embrace the wonder inherent in the things we cannot fully explain. Their story, though incomplete, offers a profound lesson in the art of letting go, of accepting that some questions may forever remain unanswered, and that within this acceptance lies a unique form of peace, a gentle surrender to the flow of time and the mysteries it carries. It is in this space of quiet acceptance, of acknowledging the beautiful, haunting nature of the unknown, that the true, lasting meaning of the Ninth Legion's disappearance can be found, not in a historical fact, but in a feeling, a contemplation. This feeling resonates with the subtle, persistent truth that the world, both ancient and modern, is full of wonders that lie just beyond the reach of our understanding, inviting us to look, to wonder, and to find peace in the mystery. As the quiet understanding began to settle within him, a subtle shift occurred in Elias's perception. He started moving beyond the grand, abstract paradoxes of the human condition and the vast, indifferent gaze of the stars above. His focus shifted towards the intricate tapestry of his everyday life instead, finding meaning not in a historical fact, but in a feeling, a contemplation. This feeling resonates with the subtle, persistent truth that the world, both ancient and modern, is full of wonders that lie just beyond the reach of our understanding, inviting us to look, to wonder, and to find peace in the mystery. The sun begins its slow descent over the rolling hills of what was once ancient Britannia, casting long, gentle shadows across the land where Roman boots once trod heavily. The golden light softens the edges of the landscape, painting the fields and distant forests in hues of amber and rose, a serene conclusion to the day. Perhaps over the modern city of York, built upon the foundations of the Ramong Ebracum, the river Ouse flows calmly, reflecting the twilight sky like a polished mirror. Its waters carry the echoes of centuries, murmuring tales of those who lived and died along its banks. A silent witness to the passage of time. This tranquil scene serves as a gentle reminder that while empires rise and fall, and mighty legions march into the mists of history, the land itself endures. The hills remain, the rivers continue their journey to the sea, carrying with them the weight of countless untold stories and secrets buried deep within the earth. The mystery of the Ninth Legion, like the mist that often clings to these northern lands, persists, a veil drawn over a specific moment in time. Inviting quiet reflection, we can find a peculiar kind of solace in contemplating these unresolved questions from the distant past. Recognizing the inherent limitations of our knowledge. There is a quiet strength in accepting that some puzzles may never be fully solved, that some threads of history simply fade away, leaving behind only the space where they once were. This acceptance can bring a sense of calm, a release from the need for definitive answers, allowing us to simply be present with the mystery itself. Imagine, if you will, those Roman soldiers of the IX Hispana, no longer burdened by the weight of their shields or the glint of their armor, their earthly struggles long since concluded. They are now perhaps like silent specters in the historical mist, their forms indistinct, their voices hushed, blended into the very fabric of the landscape they once patrolled. They have become one with the quiet earth, the rustling leaves, and the slow-moving clouds, the restless energy dissolved into the full, pervasive peace of the night. Their story, though incomplete and shrouded in uncertainty, offers us a chance to pause and consider the vastness of time and the smallness of our own certainties. It reminds us that even the most powerful forces can vanish without a trace, leaving behind only a lingering question mark in the annals of human endeavor. The unresolved fate of the Ninth Legion guide your thoughts towards a state of peaceful contemplation, a quiet surrender to the unknown that surrounds us, both in the past and in the present moment. As the last light fades from the sky and the stars begin to emerge, one by one, over the ancient lands of Britannia, feel the gentle pull of relaxation. Allow the quiet mystery of the vanished legion to settle softly in your mind, not as a source of unease, but as a prompt for peaceful thought. The soldiers of the Ninth, having completed their long watch, now rest within the quiet embrace of history, their journey finished, their secrets held by the silent land. Their story, a whisper across the centuries, becomes a lullaby, inviting your own mind to find its rest in the deep, calm stillness of the night. Let the image of the serene landscape, holding its ancient secrets close, be the last thought you hold before drifting into the quiet depths of sleep. The river flows on, the hills stand watch, and the mystery remains, a gentle presence in the darkness, guiding you towards a peaceful slumber. May the quiet contemplation of this ancient unsolved mystery bring you a sense of profound calm and lead you gently into a deep, restful sleep. As the stars twinkle above, mirroring the countless unresolved questions of the universe, find comfort in the quiet acceptance of the unknown. The legacy of the Ninth Legion is not one of battles won or lost, but of a silence, a Space and history that speaks volumes about the limits of our understanding and the enduring power of time. Allow yourself to surrender to the quiet rhythm of the story, to the gentle flow of the narrative, and feel your body and mind begin to relax. Like the ancient stones weathered by the ages. Let go of the need to hold on tightly to the complexities of the day and find peace and simplicity. The vanished legion, now a part of the earth and sky, invites you to join them in a state of quiet repose, free from the demands of the waking world. Their story is a reminder that even in disappearance, there can be a form of peace, a return to the fundamental elements from which all things arise, and to which they eventually return. Drift deeper now, carried by the gentle current of the narrative, away from the shores of wakefulness and into the calm ocean of sleep. Let the images of ancient Britannia, shrouded in twilight and mystery, become the landscape of your dreams, peaceful and still. The soldiers of the Ninth are no longer marching, no longer fighting, but are simply present in the quiet hum of existence, a part of the timeless flow. Their mystery is not a puzzle to be solved tonight, but a calming presence, a quiet question mark that encourages the mind to release its grip and find rest, accept the stillness, the silence, and the lingering sense of wonder that the story of the Ninth Legion imparts, and allow it to soothe your spirit. The boundaries between past and present, between knowing and not knowing, soften and blur in the gentle embrace of the approaching night. Find comfort in the thought that some stories are meant to remain whispers, carried on the wind through the ages, their beauty residing in their very elusiveness. The vanished Ninth Legion, a testament to the mysteries that history holds, now serves as a gentle guide into the realm of peaceful dreams. Let the quiet contemplation of their fate be the final thought before your consciousness dissolves into the restorative darkness of deep sleep. The land remembers, the river flows, and the mystery endures, a calming presence in the quiet hours, inviting you to rest.